entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
You guys ready to learn what it means to be a real man? Real man today. What? Guys can have babies, right? Sure they can. Yeah. Man enough. Today I'm going to cover this guy, Justin Baldoni, from a TED Talk about 3 years ago now. There's a reason I'm doing this, and I'll let you know here in just a moment. Coming up. Hey, brand new lens. Do we like this lens? What do we think of this lens? This is a very exorbitantly expensive lens. Catches the entire... That's enough of that. Catches the entire studio, actually. I had to be real careful about pushing this right up in my grill. No coffee today. I'm just going to do water because I need to chill out a little bit today. Happy Easter to you guys. He is risen, right? And I don't know how many people actually watch on holidays. It's really interesting to me. I mean, do you really even consider Easter a holiday? Some people do, some people don't. I'm always interested to know who watches on if I do a Christmas show or something like that, or if I did something that's close to the holidays. It's interesting to me to see who's actually watching and who's not. But anyways, happy Easter to you. And that said, we're going to jump right into these things today. I am doing this show for a variety of reasons. Sam Bada in the house. Thank you, Sammy. So play nice and we'll all be good. Rational Male Religion on Audible. When is this coming? Well, Sam is working on it right now. Sam Bada is the one to talk to about that. He is my reader, and he's going to actually, he's the reader of all my books thus far. And so that should be coming up very soon. I was hoping to get it out by March, but Sammy's you got to do what you got to do, right? I would rather have the right product than to have rushed it through. So we can talk to Sam today if we'd like. So anyways, I got a new lens. I hope this looks good. Today's gonna be a little bit of an experimental show. Thank you for the thumbnail. It's funny. I did I've done 2 essays about, I think one of them was called Mr. Mom. It's not in any, trust me, it is not in any book, but I've done a few called Mr. Mom, and it's just sort of the emasculation of men. From as far back as I want to say that was 2011 or 2012. And so I lifted that image, by the way, from some of my essays. If you guys are familiar with my blog, you understand that I used to be a photo editor. I don't think a lot of people really realize that. As part of my many hats I've worn in the past as an art director, I also had to be a photo editor. And so I have a kind of an eye for these kinds of things. If I pat myself on the back a little bit, thank you for the props for thumbnails. I think that's one of the things people have come to expect from the Rational Male is I don't do just cheap ass thumbnails. I actually put time into each one of them, and it's something I've been doing for a while. So that's why. I don't want to do just a picture of my mug and somebody else's mug on there and put, what is it? White letters and then red letters and then white letters. That's the standard fare, I guess. That apparently that's what attracts people to your website and your videos for that matter. So today we're going to be talking about masculinity. The title of this video is "Are You Man Enough?" And that's kind of like a double entendre, let's just say. The guy I'm going to do sort of a breakdown video, his name is Justin Baldoni, and I think that he is an actor. I'm fairly certain he's still an actor. I don't know exactly what. Thanks for that super sticker, Maximus. I have had this video kind of waiting in my archive for a while now. As I said, today's going to be kind of an experimental show. I'm going to be using StreamYard's video feature this time. I'm not going to go click over to a separate Chrome window today. I'm going to use the video feature. So I need you guys to sort of let me know that the audio is okay and everything else, because I've never done this before. I'm hosting actually the video on my own system here. So let me know that everything's cool. I might have to go switch over echo cancellation for this, but I'm not 100% sure. Don DeMarco, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll hit the button. Don't worry. We'll get to that sooner or later. I don't know how, Don DeMarco, I don't know how you get a red tag to these with only $2.99, but I want to know what your secret is. Sir Mr. Jason, what's going on, brother? Thanks for recommending The Parasitic Mind. I'm glad you like that, by the way. It was a good book. Is that a glimpse into the future? Is it that bad? For my thoughts. I'll tell you what. Yeah, I'll just go really quickly. I will say that I don't think that anything that Godsod is saying in that book is a surprise to anybody who's been in the sphere for very long. Yeah, hang on. Let me know about the audio once I get to the video. Sir Mr. Jason, there you are. Yeah, I think Godsod is not saying anything that a lot of people don't already know, but the people who follow Godsod who aren't exactly in the sphere, and I don't want to say manosphere, but like just sort of like in this, for lack of a better term, red pill sphere, don't know this stuff. The normies don't know this stuff. And so maybe through his work, maybe through his writing or whatever, he can sort of at least make some sort of declaration and maybe wake some people up. I like the idea that, and I know it's not his original idea, but I like the idea that memes and sort of ideologies are almost like software. And he calls it the parasitic mind because it's like ideology becomes sort of a virus that is transferred from one person to another in the same way, not unlike a computer virus in some ways. So I like that. I thought that was a novel take on everything. I know that a lot of people, like the guy, I forget the guy who came up with the term meme, M-E-M-E, but same thing. It's pretty much the same principle. Any recommendation for red pill music? There is a, okay, go look this up, Ugly D. There is a band called In This Moment. Go look up a song called Blood, Blood, Blood. Look that up and get the lyrics for it too. There's your red pills music suggestion for today. Music appreciation today. Hey, Rollo, do you know why young men are attracted to older women? I'm thinking Mrs. Robinson, Jack. Yeah, hang on to that thought, Captain. Hang on. I will come back to that. Today's not going to be a Q&A show per se, but I will get to that today. I promise you. It's not so much an Oedipus thing. I don't think so. Today I'm going to get into just sort of like our misunderstandings of what masculinity is today. And I'm doing this for a variety of reasons, primarily because I think that there is this, I hate to use the term grift. I'm not going to use the term grift, but I think that there is a preponderance of guys who want to, in some way, I'll say cash in, but they want to foment the idea that they've got the answers that you are necessarily looking for when it comes to masculinity. If you've read my book, you probably have an idea. Like I've used the term positive masculinity a lot of times. I mean, that's a title of my third book. A lot of people told me that I shouldn't name it positive masculinity because there was that's it. Yeah. Thank you. There you go. Yeah. So a lot of people told me I shouldn't name the book Positive Masculinity. I was like, why not? And they're like, well, because that implies that masculinity could be negative. And I go, well, masculinity is masculinity. I think that the reason I named it or I titled the book Positive Masculinity was because I wanted to have it as sort of like a pushback against the idea of toxic masculinity. And I am, thank you for my birthday wishes. Oh, by the way, thank you everybody. I turned 53 on Friday. If you have been, I didn't post all that much on Twitter or Instagram, all that. I just kind of put out like my Walter White bacon in the shape of a 53, and I just kind of left it at that. Thank you very much for all the well wishes. I did have a pretty good birthday, and I am probably going to take the sled out. I think again, I took it out on Friday, but I didn't take any pictures. I will probably take the sled out again on Monday, and that will be the day that I actually do some video or whatever. So there you have it for all the questions. Thanks. Gosh. So anyways, getting back to positive masculinity, a lot of people ask me like, why are you naming it this? Because they were concerned that if by saying so that I was also implying that masculinity could be negative. And I don't necessarily believe that. The only reason I titled it that was because I wanted it as a pushback against the concept of toxic masculinity, which is a qualifier. Now, I have to explain a few things about qualifiers here. Whenever you put something like culture, if you say, let's just say gosh, I'm a little early in the show, but let's just say grape culture. You know what I'm talking about? Or a lad culture, I think, is something that they talk about in the UK. Or it's this culture or that culture. Whenever you attach like a suffix of culture onto a terminology, you make it endemic. And so when you qualify things like toxic masculinity or toxic this or toxic that, you're putting a prefix on it in this case. But what you're doing is you're making it endemic. And what I mean by that is like there's a presumption within the term itself that everybody's doing it. That there is this pervasive endemic idea, this culture, this meme, right? I mean, thank you for the parasitic mind reference, because that kind of gets back to what this is. It's this idea that there is some sort of collective ideology or this collective understanding or this collective culture or this, whatever you want to do. Like you put culture afterwards or you put toxic this, you're qualifying that, but not only are you qualifying whatever follows or whatever the predicate is of that particular term, that becomes something that is we're meant to believe just within the term itself that it is something that everybody believes, that everybody is working with. So, when you attach something to it, you got to be careful. Like I'm sure you guys have probably heard of what's called a neurolinguistic programming, and I'm just going to give you. I'm not going to get into too much detail because this can get very, very detailed. So when we talk about neurolinguistic programming, it's the choice of words that imply something about that particular term that is a qualifier to that term. So when you put culture after something, that becomes endemic. So it's a presumption that there's a bunch of people that actually believe this. It's like a cult. It's a meme. It's a way of life of some sorts. And so you have to be careful when you see things like that. When you read, like whenever I read something that's like a terminology for I don't know, something that I'm meant to within the statement of the term that I'm meant to believe about that particular term. So when we talk about toxic masculinity, there was a time when toxic masculinity was just something that was it was just meant to be a qualifier. Now, I think really as of about 2017, maybe 2018, the idea that masculinity itself is toxic has sort of found its way into the mainstream. So when we're looking at, I can remember when this happened, actually. It was, I think it was right around September or October of 2017 when the mass shooting happened in Las Vegas, Nevada here. And it was the worst, still is, as far as I know, is still the worst incident of mass shooting in the United States history. And it's just kind of been casually swept under the carpet. Nobody's asking questions about it. And I think it's still kind of, I don't want to say it's an unsolved mystery, but it is something that we just, I have been amazed that we have not had more answers about that whole incident. Now, of course, it's Vegas. It happened at a major, was it MGM? I think it was, or no, was it maybe it was Mandalay Bay. I think it might've been Mandalay Bay. But right after that incident, we go through a cycle, okay? And usually that cycle is gun control, and then it goes to From gun control, it will go to toxic masculinity. Usually it ends up at toxic masculinity through whatever. It's gun control. Men are men are evil. Men are the shooters. Men kill people, blah, blah, blah. And it was at that time that I noticed that there was kind of a shift or a pivot in the narrative. And the narrative is usually men are toxic and we need to take their guns away from them. Or I think it was Michael Moore who had said something about how we need to have gun control in the form of men getting a permission slip from their wives or their girlfriends to actually have a firearm here in the United States. And of course, he's being facetious. He's just doing it for effect. He's just trying to throw that out there. But I think that it's interesting that that is the first place that we go with it. But it's not because of toxic masculinity, but that masculinity itself is toxic. And I noticed that and I thought, you know what, that is a different narrative. That is something now it's no longer a qualifier, like I was saying. It is now endemic of the actual term itself. So when we said what we're meant to believe in these, when I was reading these articles that came out after that, is that the idea, the state of masculinity is toxic no matter what. Now, you guys have probably heard me say this before in the past, and I've written several articles about this, that we not only do we live in a gynocentric social order, but we also live in what I've termed as a female correct social order. So whatever the female experience is, however you define it, like whatever the female experience is, whatever works for the feminine imperative is the correct way that we should be thinking about things. Now, I'm prefacing today's video here with this because it's important to remember this when you're watching this, because this guy, Justin Baldoni, is a product of a female correct social order, meaning that the way to process emotion, the way to think about your life experience is through a female lens. It's through a female filter. So the more feminine you are, that should define you as a quote unquote good human being. I've done several essays, and usually I think I did them in 2018 or 2019 when I was covering the female, or excuse me, the female, the Great Women's Marches. Remember, with the pink pussy hats and all that kind of stuff? And there were tons of these little boys who were probably, as far as I know, were either part of a family where the father was emasculated to the point where he didn't have any say, or else it was single mothers that were doing this. They were taking their boys and they were making them hold placards. And those placards said, boys will be boys. And then the last boys is crossed out. So it's like boys will be crossed out boys. And then underneath it, it's good humans. It's no longer about being a boy, because being a boy, being male, is wrong. Being masculine is toxic. It's not just toxic masculinity. It's not like, okay, well, men have to be men and they have to be masculine. And there's these things that are toxic and there's these things that aren't toxic. And I've written about that in the past as well. I've said that the things that make a guy toxic are almost uniquely the things that conflict with the female experience, the female correct social order. So if a man has a propensity of males, human males, with our testosterone, with our genetics, with what we are, we have a proclivity for violence. Yes. Yeah. The feminists are more than happy to point out all of the statistics saying, well, you know, men are they're always the violent offenders. That's what really the Duluth model of feminism is based on. It's the presumption that men are going to default to anger and then default to violence. And so therefore we have to base our policy and our policing on the idea that the man is probably going to be the offender. And in some cases, they might be right about that. But that's part of what we are as human males on planet Earth in 2021. That's what we default to. It's also known as the male anger bias. There's a lot of, I want to say it's evolutionary psychology, is the understanding that human females and children, for that matter, have an instinctive understanding of when men are angry, or what might set a guy off, or the cues, whether that's behavioral cues or visual cues, like body language, facial expressions, those kinds of things. There's all kinds of different presumptions that we make. It's what's called the male anger bias. So what that means is that in our evolutionary past, it made more sense for women to err on the side that guy was going to be angry. that the guy that whoever that they're dealing with, whatever the news is that they're breaking to them, whatever the response is, there's visual cues and there's sort of like verbal cues, vocal cues, I should say as well, where women in our ancestral past have, over the course of millennia, have developed a psychological firmware that says, if a man is saying this, or if a man is doing this, if a man raises his voice, that means he's going to be violent. And it's been in our human evolutionary best interest that women and children do that, because men do default to anger and they do default to violence, because that's part of what we are. And that's part of the starting package, right? That's part of this hardware that we have. With human males produce 12 to 17 times, I hope I'm quoting this right, 12 to 17 times the serum testosterone that women do. And as a result of that, that predisposes us to sometimes being aggravated. It's just like roid rage, right? It's why do guys get roid rage? Because you're infusing your body, in this case with synthetic testosterone. But yeah, you're going to get roid rage. You're going to have feelings of aggression. I think it was in book 1, I had a story in there about a female bodybuilder who started doing gear, right? I won't say it's trend. I don't know what it was, Decabolin or whatever it was at the time. But the first thing she told me because my brother was, just so you know, my brother used to be an amateur circuit bodybuilder. And so I used to hang out with a lot of bodybuilder guys and stuff and work out myself. I was never competing or anything like that. But, so I can remember talking to this girl when she was on gear, and she says the first thing she says, I have never understood why guys are so horny all the time, and now she understands why they are. She's like, I can't believe you guys are like this all the time. Because what had happened is now she's increasing her testosterone load, and she's feeling like aggression, aggravation, that kind of stuff. She says, I can't understand how you guys, how men can deal with this all the time. And it's like, well, we were born this way. And so we have to sort of psychologically have sort of mechanisms that buffer against, being angry all the time. We have to, men have to have way more self-control in certain situations than women ever will have. In fact, we don't even encourage women to have self-control right now, whether it's sex or whether it's aggression or whether it's hubris or whatever else. I mean, in a feminine primary social order, we don't have those buffers, or we have those buffers in a much more reduced capacity than we used to. For men, we kind of have to. You got to be careful about who you are aggressive with and who you aren't. I think there is I don't know for sure about this. I would love to see studies if there are, but I think that there are probably some psychological mechanisms like, evolutionary psychological firmware that men have where we can read cues like that. So we know when to get aggressive. It's fight or flight, right? We know when to get aggressive and we know when not to get aggressive because we probably get our asses kicked. And I think that there is an evolutionary basis to that because we had to be able to tell the difference between sort of somebody sort of ribbing you and giving you grief and giving you shit rather than actually an aggressive, like I'm posting up on you kind of thing. So, but I don't think women have that understanding in the same way that men do. But women and children in our ancestral past have had what's called the male anger bias. So it's better to presume that that guy's going to get angry and going to get violent because it's better to err on the side of survival than it is to presume that that guy is actually just a big softy and he's not actually posting up on you. So that's actually part of masculinity. Well, that is very inconvenient to women in a gynocentric social order where men are supposed to behave themselves and are supposed to, or at least the premise that men are supposed to get in touch with their feminine side, get in touch with their emotions, express themselves emotionally. Well, men actually do express themselves emotionally. It's just inconvenient for women because we call it toxic masculinity. Anger is an emotion. Outrage is an emotion. Violence, that's a behavioral response, a behavioral manifestation of a lot of emotions. For most of the time, when guys lose that self-control, and I'm not talking about self-defense or anything like that. I'm just talking about what do guys default to? Well, a lot of the things that constitute what we would otherwise term as biological masculinity is very inconvenient to a society that says the female experience is the correct experience. And so how do we ensure against that? How do we push back against that? How do we make sure that the future generations of boys don't default to anger? That way, we're just gonna. It's okay to cry. It's all this, all this emotional stuff that we want to instill in these boys, because there's this presumption that boys won't be boys. Boys will be bad humans if we don't otherwise step in and say, you know what, Johnny, we're going to raise you as a defective girl, because you as a defective girl is preferable to you being a natural born conventionally masculine male, because masculinity is toxic now. And when that meme gets distributed and disseminated throughout a social order, then yeah, that's gonna contribute not only to the confusion of Johnny when he's 5, but when Johnny is 25 and he is confused about masculinity, or he believes that masculinity is a mask or an act or a role that is foisted upon him that he's expected to maintain. And it's primarily based on the idea that masculinity is something ambiguous, or it's an act, or it's a social construct. If you watch, I forget who I was asking me about the parasitic mind. That's part of that. It's, if you've ever read The Blank Slate by The Modern Denial of Human Nature by Steven Pinker, and I don't care what your opinion is of Steven Pinker right now, that's a fantastic book when it comes to, in terms of data is concerned. Is there are things that just make you male. There are things that make you masculine. There are natural proclivities that you are going to have. And I think that when we rely on things like the presumption that everybody's tabula rasa, right? Everything is a blank slate, or it's this nebulous society that teaches boys to be, toughen up, Johnny, smack you upside the head, like we're all drill sergeants or something, that have taught the last 4 generations to be like that. First of all, that's nonsense. And I'll tell you why that's nonsense here in a minute. But the social convention, I'm not saying that social conventions or social conditioning or social constructionism isn't actually a thing. It is. It's not the only thing. And that's where we're at right now in a gynocentric social order. If you take away the blank slate, if you take away social constructionism, you kick out the legs of toxic masculinity. You kick out the legs of so many other social conventions that are dependent on those principles, that you can't maintain that anymore. So I'm going to focus today on masculinity, on what is conventionally masculine, what makes a human male masculine, and what makes a human female feminine today. But primarily, I want to talk about how this guy, Justin Baldoni, comes to the conclusions that he does. Because he is a product of a social order that has, in some way, conditioned, as I keep saying, blue pill conditioned this guy to think the way that he thinks. Because in prior generations, they didn't think this. Or actually, 2 prior generations, or maybe even 3 prior generations, they weren't having the same experience. It wasn't the same. There weren't the same presumptions. There weren't the same assuming that masculinity is a bad thing. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. Let me get to the rest of these real fast. The term misogyny seems to be slung around at anyone who challenges any aspect of feminist ideology. Okay, yes. Thanks for your work, ROLLO. You're appreciated. Thank you very much. Now, what I want to also make a distinction here, Godfather 94, is there is a difference between feminism and gynocentrism. Gynocentrism is the social order that we're dealing with right now, and have been dealing with really since the sexual revolution. It's been sort of building up to where we're at right now since the mid 60s. And in what I call the fempowerment narrative as well. Now, I also have to define some terms here. When I talk about gynocentrism, it's usually in terms of like the socio-political understanding of whether, what are we going to teach the next generations? What's going to be taught in public and private schools? How are we going to shape the next generation of men, of women? And usually that's at the behest, I guess, of an ideology that is gynocentrism, meaning that we focus on the experiences, the life experiences of women, of the female of the species. What works best for women? What works best for the female, the feminine imperative? So what is the feminine imperative? The feminine imperative is whatever works for women. right? Whatever is in the best interests of women's mating strategy. I usually refer to it in that term, but it also means what also works in the best interests of women's life strategy, because eventually that mating strategy becomes a woman's life strategy. So, and so the feminine imperative is the best interests of the experiences of women, but also it is the best interests of womankind, the sisterhood uber alles. So it's not, and for the most, I should say this, for the most amount of women, for the largest pool of women. So when women come into socio-political power, that's what they focus on primarily. That's the reason why most women get into politics. It's not to serve mankind better. It's not to take care of these problems down at City Hall, right? It's not to be the mayor of whatever city it is. It's not actually about that. It's about proving that a woman can do this job, or it's about how can we improve and how can we reinforce gynocentrism, which is the idea that the female experience should be the primary one, should be the correct way of thinking about things. So there is gynocentrism, there's a feminine imperative, and then, as you said, Godfather, is the feminist ideology. Now, feminism is definitely an ideology. It's a belief set. I would argue, and I have in book 4, that emotionalism is really the religion of the goddess. It is really the religion of feminism. And why do I say that? Because emotionalism and emotion is the first priority for women. It's how women interpret their surroundings. And so if the correct way to think about life and to experience life is through a female lens, that means that we start with the emotional side of things rather than the rational and the reasoning side of things. Again, I've done several essays and I've done several shows about this. Instinct, emotion, and reason is usually how women interpret the world. They go from instinct to emotion. How do I feel about it? And then they go to reason if they ever get to reason. If they are conditioned, or if they've learned, or if they have some sort of process that they go through, then maybe they get to. I'm not saying that women are innately unreasonable. It's just that their priorities, their natural proclivities to go from instinct to emotion to reason. For men, it is the other way around. Instinct, reason, and then emotion. So it's instinct, what can I do about this? And then how did I feel about this? For women, it's instinct, what's going on? How do I feel about this? And then what can I do about this? Now, women are going to see this and hack up in disgust. So before you, or other guys will do this too, before you throw rocks at me, let me say that yes, men are very, very emotional right now, because for the last 4 generations, they've been conditioned to believe that it should be instinct, emotion, and reason for them. And that's why they prioritize it first. When we say you need to get in touch with your feminine side, you need to get in touch with your emotion, you need to be more emotionally available. You know where that comes from? That comes from a social order that prioritizes the female way of processing their surroundings, their environment, their information that comes into their sort of sphere of understanding. It's always, how do I feel about this? And then what can I do about this? Instead of what can I do about this? And then how do I feel about this? That's the the innate male way of doing it. And so when instinct, reason, and emotion is a part of conventional masculinity, that's wrong. That's the wrong way to do it. It's, follow your heart, right? That's pretty much what every Disney and Pixar movie has been for forever. That's what every romance novel is about. It's what even Shakespeare, right? I mean, we can go all the way back to Shakespeare's time. Really, it's like, you followed your heart and your heart was right. The heart will go on, from Titanic, right? That was because that's the correct way to think. That's the correct way to do it. Follow your heart, follow your emotions, and you'll be happy. And even if you're not happy, well, at least you did the right thing, because the right thing is to follow your emotions, because we live in a gynocentric social order that reinforces that, rather than think with your friggin' head. Rather than think about what you're doing. You want to know why the red pill is so inflammatory to a gynocentric social order? Because it flips that. It flips it from instinct, emotion, reason to instinct, reason, and then emotion. I'm not saying emotion's a bad thing. I'm just saying it needs to it needs to be prioritized differently, much differently. You want to know why we're in such dire straits socially in this country and a lot of other Western countries? That's why. But again, getting back to today's topic, that is that process, that evolved mental firmware that is part of being a human male is reprogrammed. It's not that just because you have mental firmware doesn't mean that software can't override that. And in this case, that's what we've been doing for the last 4 generations. We raise our boys as if they are defective girls. Okay, we figured that out. We live in the participation trophy generation because it feels better that way. Nobody's a loser. There's no competition. There's no merit. There's no dominance hierarchy if everyone's a winner. And that's, again, the idea of a merit-based society versus a communitarian, kind of socialized, socialist, female primary society. What you're looking at is you're looking at a male experience versus a female experience. And the female experience wins right now and has been since 1965, really. I mean, progressively since 1965. But we're still clinging to these ideas that, there's this patriarchy, and we're going to see this with Justin Baldoni. It's like, society wants me to be tough and toughen up. It's society. No, it's not society. It might be society that's teaching you to be an emotional sponge, an emotional tampon. But it's not society that is teaching you. It hasn't been that way for a long time. It hasn't been society that's been smacking you upside the head and teaching you tonight, don't cry, Johnny, pow. No, it's usually, Johnny, here's your participation trophy. You feel good, right? Oh, Johnny, you're going to have to go sit in the corner. We're going to give you Ritalin and Adderall until you can come back to the class and be a citizen and learn like all the little girls are. Well, Johnny can't do that because Johnny is a boy and he thinks about things, and his way, his experience of life is a whole lot different than little Susie's. But because we have female teachers and we teach boys as if they are girls, or we think that the most effective way to teach boys and girls is in a female primary perspective, then yeah, that's what's going to happen. If you don't believe me, I got the stats to back that up too. It's like 78% of your teachers from preschool all the way up to your postgraduate school will be female teachers, whether that's in a private institution or that's in a public institution. Guys who want to be red pill parents, put that on your notebook right now, because that's what you're going to be dealing with. So there you have that. Let me keep continuing on here. I want to catch up before I put the video up here real fast. I might have missed a few. Where the hell is this? Oh, there it is. Hold on one second. Oh, did I get it? There we are. Let's see. If I miss I apologize if I miss your post. I will get to it eventually here. Hey, Rollo, I appreciate everything you've done. What book do you recommend on game? The one I'm writing right now. You guys twisted my arm enough that I am actually compiling a game book. Again, it's not going to be like, oh, I'm a dating coach. I've never been a dating coach. I will never be a dating coach. I've never been a PUA. I will never be a PUA. But I will tell you why certain things work and what you can do to use these psychological dynamics, these social dynamics, to improve your game. So, is there what book? I can't recommend any book to you. I mean, maybe Troy Francis's stuff is. I'll go look at Troy Francis. In the meantime, go look at Troy Francis's library, his archive of books. He's very good at game. Go check that out. But in the meantime, like, again, I can't write a book on game per se. Like, I'm never going to write the book that says, say these words. And I'm not going to give you mystery method. I'm going to tell you why what mystery said back in the day is still applicable today. And you could probably modify it and use it yourself. But I'm not going to say, oh, say these words. Here's a 99 pickup lines. I'm not going to do that. But I will compile a book that will explain why game does work and why it does not work. Professor Rollo, thank you very much for finding time to lecture us again and again. I wish I could attend your courses in school. Well, let me tell you, Twin, I will also lay this out for you as well. As once I have that game book out, I will probably end up doing some kind of coursework for that as well, just because there's so many people that really want counseling, and it's really difficult for me to, like, if you've got to me about counseling and I haven't got back to you, I will get back to you. I promise I will get back to you. Just be patient. But also consider this. Are you in such a position right now where you will be okay doing like sort of a group thing, or do you really need one-on-one? because that's what, if I hit you back, that's the first question I'm going to ask you, because it would be much more efficient and much more cost efficient for you if I can do these in sort of group sessions rather than me doing a one-on-one thing. So I just read mode 1. If women don't like to know they're playing the game, how is mode 1 effective? It's effective in that it is the most pragmatic way of employing game. I don't think it is always 100% effective, but I do think that it is the most pragmatic way of running game. You're not wasting your time. If there's a moral to the story for mode 1, it is stop wasting time. Stop wasting time. And I think that when guys get into that mode of thinking, when they start thinking about mode 1, right? When they start thinking in terms of why am I wasting my time with this person? It's very similar to what I've said in the past about like sort of like the 3 strikes rule. Yes, I know Tom Likas has talked about this as well. The 3 strikes rule is not a punishment. It's so you're not wasting time. If a woman is not showing you genuine desire by the 3rd date, assuming there is even a 3rd date, then it's time to eject. Or it's also a good reinforcement of the idea that you need to be spinning plates. So if you got again, just because you're spinning plates does not necessarily mean you're banging all those girls. It means that they're prospective women who you could be intimate with, or you would like to be intimate with at some point. It doesn't mean you're following them and chasing after them and you're a dancing monkey for every one of them. It just means that you're not wasting time on unproductive women. See what I'm saying? If we're going to talk about the sexual marketplace in terms of an economy, you've got to be pragmatic in that economy. That's where mode 1 comes in. So, and yes, I am still on very good, as far as I know, I'm still on very good terms with Alan Roger Curry. I like the guy a lot. I like it. I like his kid. He puts out lots of pictures of his kid on Instagram, and it looks just like him. It's like mini Alan, mini ARC. Okay, so I'm going to add this to the stream here. Hang on one second.
And it's my job to...
Sorry, this is from a TED Talk. That is actually, can I do this? I can't. I'm hosting this live on I'm hosting this video on my iMac here. So just let me know that the sound quality is okay and the video qualities and everything else is good. I've never done this before, so this is new to me. We're all going to do this, and we're all going to help. You're going to help me with this experiment today. So this is Baldoni, Mr. Baldoni. He's an actor. He's going to explain this to you here. I'm going to let this run for a little bit so you guys can get an idea. Let me know that the video and the quality is okay. So we're going to go with this. Hang on.
Stay on script. Say my lines. And bring to life a character that someone else wrote. Over the course of my career, I've had the great honor playing some of the greatest male role models ever represented on television. You might recognize me as male escort number 1. Photographer, date rapist, shirtless date rapist from the award-winning Spring Break Shark Attack, shirtless medical student, shirtless steroid-using con man, and in my most well-known role as Raphael. A brooding, reformed playboy who falls for all things a virgin.
Okay, so I want to stop it here. He's just sort of, giving his cred here for a second, just say what he's all about. But let's also, we have to kind of take this. Is there echo? Is there echo? Sorry, my bad. Hang on one second. I'm going to, maybe this will work better for you guys. Thank you for letting me know that there's echo. Tell me if there's echo now. Is there echo here?
And he's only occasionally shirtless. Now, these roles don't represent the kind of man I am in my real life. But that's what I love about acting. I get to live inside characters very different than myself.
No echo now. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. So sorry. I didn't know that I needed to put on echo cancellation on that. I usually don't put echo cancellation on when I'm doing the theme song to this. So anyways, getting back to the point here. The guy's good looking. All right. I mean, any looks maxer, any guy who is sort of one of these black pill guys, or you doomers who are saying, oh, it's all about looks, it's all about looks. They'll look at this guy and they'll go, yeah, he doesn't have to do anything, more or less. I mean, he's in shape. He's got abs. He's got that 5 o'clock shadow. He's very symmetrical. He's got the jawline going for him. Young enough, has a deeper voice. I don't know how tall the dude is, but let's just say I don't think he's 6 foot. I didn't really look this up. Maybe he's 5'10". I don't know. He looks tall enough. It's certainly not 5'9". He's probably a little bit taller than that. So when we're looking, and this is a really good point here, I wanted us to stop really quickly because the guy's a good looking dude. He's good looking enough to go and be an actor on a soap opera or whatever the hell he's talking about here, showing off his physique. You have to put this into context because what he is going to say is going to be very incongruent with what we would expect from a guy who is quote unquote an alpha male based solely on his looks. So that's kind of like an aside for today. But remember, because you're good looking, because you make a lot of money, because you have status, that does not cure a beta mindset. Money doesn't cure beta. Looks doesn't cure beta. Only the proper thinking, man. The only mental point of origin will cure beta. Only unlearning your old conditioning is going to cure beta. What do you got to say here? Oops, sorry, my bad. Pull this out real quick. Jeez, I have to put that on. He seems to have more than a pinch of solipsism. All right, you're going to find that out here in just a minute, ML. Let's add.
The time I got one of these roles, I was surprised because most of the men I play ooze machismo, charisma, and power. And when I look in the mirror, that's just not how I see myself. But it was how Hollywood saw me. And over time, I noticed a parallel between the roles I would play as a man, both on screen and off. I've been pretending to be a man that I'm not my entire life. I've been pretending to be strong when I felt weak, confident when I felt insecure, and tough when really I was hurting. I think for the most part, I've just been kind of putting on a show.
All right. So right there is the very beginning of all this. Masculinity is always a show to guys who have been brought up in a female correct, female primary way of thinking about masculinity. Masculinity can never be authentic in a gynocentric social order, because for that to be authentic would mean for a guy to say, you know what, I feel like I'm a man and this is what I'm about. And what's interesting to me is that he complains about a Hollywood that is paying him a lot of money and to look at him and to listen to him deliver his lines. But it's based on an understanding that this is what a congruent masculine male says, does, looks like, acts like. And yet he still thinks that he is in some way inauthentic in his real life as a result of that. He has you will find out later on as the rest of this video, he's very, very feminized. And thank you for the well wishes there, Paulina. Who's your wish my partner? Thomas, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, my friend, too. Wow, another Aries, right? Not that I put much truck in that. So anyways, getting back to this, the idea that masculinity is a mask or an act. The guy is an actor. So who better to give you the breakdown of masculinity as sort of this mask that you wear? It's inauthentic. It's never real, than a guy who makes a living doing exactly that. The guy who is actually an actor himself, who acts this out, but he doesn't really feel that way. So let's continue on here with our good friend.
But I'm tired of performing. And I can tell you right now that it is exhausting trying to be man enough for everyone all the time. Now, right? My brother heard that. Now, for as long as I can remember, I've been told the kind of man that I should grow up to be. As a boy, all I wanted was to be accepted and liked by the other boys. But that acceptance meant I had to acquire this almost disgusted view of the feminine. And since we were told that feminine is the opposite of masculine, I either had to reject embodying any of these qualities.
That's interesting. He presumes that the feminine is the opposite of masculine. Like, or shouldn't be, I should say that. Shouldn't be the opposite. Rather than coming up with sort of binaries and what is amazing to me is that guys from this guy's generation who are otherwise very, very into binary extremes this is where they don't want to be. This is where they want to be sort of feminized. They want to find some way to, some happy medium, right? I just want to be whatever I want to be kind of thing. It's a very subjective, and you'll see this here in just a moment, because he's going to get very subjective when it comes to what is masculine. Or he's going to give you an idea of the confusion that he feels here.
Or face rejection myself. This is the script that we've been given. Right? Girls are weak and boys are strong. This is what's being subconsciously communicated to hundreds of millions of young boys and girls all over the world.
Okay, so now we're making this endemic, as I was saying in the very beginning of this show. There's a presumption that there is this worldwide effort still to this day, that patriarchy or what, like he hasn't said the word yet, but the idea that there is this patriarchal society, this nefarious social order that is in some way indoctrinating guys and indoctrinating boys to be these just emotionless, warrior race, don't cry, Johnny, smack you upside the head kind of, chauvinistic kind of, drill sergeant / football coach guy who is disgusted with you because you cried or you're showing weakness. And again, it's going to come back to the idea of what is vulnerability and what is not vulnerability. If vulnerability is, in my estimate, vulnerability, that the way that we talk about it today when it refers to men is most definitely a weakness. Definition of vulnerability. The dictionary definition of vulnerability is weakness. That's what it is. If you're going to make it relative, if you're going to make it subjective, well, now you're not talking about what are let's define terms here. So I've done shows about vulnerability. I won't get into it too much here, but he's going to start talking about that in just a second here. Thank you. No questions, Rollo. Just want to say happy birthday. Thank you. The Red Pill crew have changed my life for the better. Always grateful. Thank you for those well wishes, my friend, and thank you for that, ML, as well. Anybody else? Male and female are complementary, obvious. Yeah, but they are different. That's the problem, I think, is his, and what he's going to start getting into here in just a minute is almost like, and I hate to use the term homogenous, but it is homogenous, but it is also androgynous. That's the ideal. That is I think what's interesting to me is that we still want to empower women. We still want to have this sort of female supremacism that is part like, if we just gave everything over to women and let them run the show, then everything will be better for us. That there is always going to be that, but the only way that we can get to that point in a communitarian, socialist sort of female egalitarianism narrative is if men believe that they should be just that first of all, that masculinity is an act, it's socially constructed, and that it is undesirable, but also that their idealized state is not necessarily to be less than a man, because they still can't let go of that, but it is to also assume what they think are the best qualities of women. And therefore, when you do that, you become androgynous. You become half man, half woman. That's the idealized state. At least that's what we're told from a gynocentric social order, is that women should be women and powerful and strong, because he's just saying this a minute ago is like, we're taught that women should be weak. No, we are not. We have not had that narrative it's certainly not in Western culture for a very long time. Watch any Marvel movie. Watch any Star Wars movie. Watch any popular media. Read any book. Listen to any song. Listen to pop culture in any fashion for the last 20 years, maybe 25, maybe even you can go all the way back to the 80s, really. But let's just say for the last 25 years, that is horseshit, absolute horseshit. In fact, all you can find is the strong, independent lead role for women right now when it comes to whatever the story is, whatever your video game is, name it. Show me where this is happening. Show me where we're trying to keep, you got to keep the woman down. We got to keep the girls down. We got to be, the girls are weak. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. But this is the narrative that this guy feels like he has to throw out there, because if he is, then he is more endearing to women. Then he is more, then he's pledging his allegiance to a gynocentric social order by towing this line. And it's not that he's doing this sort of like, without, like, he's not like he's doing this maliciously, or he's trying like, oh, I feel like I have to do this, or he's not even really doing it. He might be doing it for validation, but that need for validation comes from the idea that if he doesn't toe the line, and if he's not out there, he's not outspoken, he's a good looking dude, he's an actor, people are going to listen to him. And you'll see this in all, it doesn't have to be him. It's all throughout Hollywood. People will listen to me. So if I want to be loved and adored by, society, the female centric society, these are the things that I have to say. Okay. What are the things that you feel that you have to say? Well, I got to remember, we got to pretend that the patriarchy is still in any way controlling. They're not. They have not. The patriarchy as a social order has not really existed in the way that he's describing it, and most other women and feminists will describe it to this day. Hasn't existed for 25, maybe 30, maybe even 45 years, maybe even longer than that. It's certainly not the same. Today's patriarchy, whatever that amounts to, is most definitely not what it was in 1965 when the sexual revolution occurred. Absolutely not. But we're going to still pretend that that's still what's happening. That's still the way things are. No, it's not. And it's provably not. I can prove it to you in this day and age because we have social media, because we have access to that information. So maybe in the 90s, if this guy's giving the same speech, we'll go, yeah, sure. But for the last 20 years, since we've had access to information that we haven't had before, now we go, you're full of shit, dude. And you're clinging to old order ways of thinking. The old order way of thinking is how patriarchy exists today. And I see you, Sam. Thank you for archiving those, my friend. There it is. Justin Baldoni. Proposal to his fiance is on YouTube. Extremely blue pill beta and over the top. You can do a separate video just on that. Actually, Travis, the way that I became aware of this guy, probably back in 2016, 2017, I think. Was he was part of a group, and I don't know that it's still around, but it used to be called We Are Man Enough, or Are We Man Enough, or something like that. And there was a series of videos that I think are still available on YouTube that you can go look up. That's how I archived this video as a result of that. But it's very much almost an updated version of the Good Man Project. And if you don't know what the Good Man Project is, I'm actually considering doing kind of like a brief video on the Good Man Project. And the Good Man Project was is that, ladies, you got us. We're going to try to be better men for you. And it's very much the idea that masculinity studies, and if we're going to have a healthy understanding of what masculinity ought to be, then this is it. And we're going to apologize. And it's very similar to what I was talking about on Wednesday about that. And that's what inspired this. On Wednesday, I talked about the Australian the kids in Australia who were forced to apologize to the little girls in an assembly or whatever the hell it was, for the sins of their fathers, for the sexism and the assault, and they just presume that all these kids, all these little boys, you're gonna be a rapist, you're gonna be an assaulter, you're gonna be a sexist, you're gonna be a patriarchal guy. So and everybody that came before you, they were bad. And if you want to be a good human, then you're gonna sit there and you're gonna turn over to Susie and apologize to Susie. Now take that and apply that to men in the mid 2015. Take that and apply it to this guy right here. This is apologetics, is what this is. It's apologetics for, it's this testimony. It's confession time at the Church of Emotionalism. That's what this is. It's confessing your sins, that you never really committed yourself. And probably your father and your generations before you didn't have that same belief set either, but they confessed their sins in some way as well. This right here, what Baldoni's doing here, is confessing his sins much in the same way as the boys in that Australian school were forced to do to all the girls that were in the assembly. So that is, yeah, I got that. Send tacos. Thank you. I need tacos, man. Tacos are good. I'm looking for, tacos are good. Of course they're good. What do we got here? Colonel Sanders says, happy birthday. You were the doorway to my awakening. Thank you. I'm glad you can benefit from what it is that I do. And thank you for the $50. It really helps me pay for this lens right here. I hope you guys like this new lens. Men rejoice. The more men are like this weak beta, the easier it is to stand out, hit the gym. Yeah, we're going to get to that too, Billy D. Billy D. Williams. Williams. And then I have you, birthday burritos. I got tacos and burritos today. Man, you guys made me hungry, and I'm gonna have to end the show early so I can get some food. It's Easter. Is it okay to eat burritos on Easter? I think so. What else did I miss here? Hey, Rollo, this is the Pont Chill. Hey, I appreciate everything you've done. What books? Okay, I already talked about that one. Thank you for covering for me there. All right, here we go. Let's keep going.
Just like it was with me. Well, I came here today to say, as a man, that this is wrong, this is toxic, and it has to end.
Whoa! And the crowd goes nuts.
Now, I'm not here to give a history lesson. We likely all know how we got here, okay? But I'm just a guy that woke up after 30 years and realized that I was living in a state of conflict. Conflict with who I feel I am in my core, and conflict with who the world tells me as a man I should be. But I don't have a desire to fit into the current broken definition of masculinity.
Broken.
Because I don't just want to be a good man. I want to be a good human. And I believe the only...
There you have it. I want to be a good human. Just like all those little boys carrying those placards at the pussy parades, right? The pink hat pussy parades. That is exactly the terminology that was used on those placards. I should have put it in the relevant links. I will, though. Down below, I'll put it in the relevant links. I have an essay called Good Humans. Again, not in any book, but I wrote it about the idea that feminist women who are single mothers of young sons are I would say indoctrinating them, because they are, but also sort of embedding in them that they are bad humans if they're boys, if they feel anything, that if they experience life, through a masculine lens, then they are bad humans. And that's what really this comes down to, is like, I'm a bad human because I'm man, because I'm a male, because I've been socialized and acculturated by this nefarious social order that has told me that I need to be tough, and I need to I can cry when I don't want to, and I can't reach out for help, and I don't want to be vulnerable. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in just a second, but look at the overarching narrative here. To be male is to be bad. This is the demonization part. So there's two messages in this whole thing. One, masculinity is confusing. I don't know what to do. I've never felt comfortable looking at myself in the mirror, even though all the guys in Hollywood wanted me to be this tough guy and wanted to be, have six-pack abs. And boy, I got to fight the women off with the stick, and I'm enjoying the benefits of it, but I really don't feel that way. I really feel like I should be a woman and trapped in a man's body, and this body that has a V-taper and six-pack abs, and I'm 5'10", and I'm making a lot of money in Hollywood as a result of this. Maybe there's something to this. I don't know. I'm not going to think about that because I don't have the insight to do that, because I've been I think of things in terms of the female experience. That's number one. Number one is I'm confused about masculinity. Now we're going on to number two. Masculinity is intrinsically bad. Is to be a man is to be masculine is to be toxic. It's no longer toxic masculinity. Remember, he just said masculinity is broken. Okay, define what you mean by broken. How is it broken? Is it broken because you still cling to an old order concept that this is what boys and girls are being taught all over the world, millions of them for years and years? No. Again, I can statistically, empirically disproven. I can show you this, but the narrative is all that matters. And remember, the narrative is what is sort of influencing him to even get up on stage for 15 minutes to talk about this.
The only way that can happen is if men learn to not only embrace the qualities that we were told are feminine in ourselves, but to be willing to stand up, to champion, and learn from the women who embody them. Now, men.
Here comes the scolding. So that's the appeal to the women in the audience. That's the appeal to, that's the pledge of allegiance to the feminine imperative. And what I meant by that, like I said in the very beginning of this show, was that the female experience is the correct experience. This guy is a product of a social order that has created a guy who thinks that that's the way it ought to be. That's why he's making appeals to women. Notice that they did the pan of the audience there, and it's almost 100% women there. So there has to be sort of this declaration of allegiance, this pledge of allegiance to the female and the female experience, right? Women, you do it right. We need to embrace, and he's also making presumptions here. He's presuming, Carl Jung, anima animus, right? Presuming that men and women have male and female sides. And if we could just find some sort of internal balance between them, we would be more complete people. And that complete person is androgynous because it's both sides. It's the feminine paired, balanced perfectly with the masculine. Well, how do you do that when the masculine side is toxic? How do you balance that out? How do anima and animus balance out? Oh, the bad side of me, the dark side of me is the masculine side. And the right, glorious, beautiful, wonderful side, the pure, angelic side of me is the female side. That's where we go with this. That's what the presumptions are that we're intended to make when we see this. Now he's going to scold the men.
I'm not saying that everything we've learned is toxic, okay? I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with you or me. And men, I'm not saying we have to stop being men.
Yes, you are.
But we need balance, right?
What?
We need balance. And the only way things will change is if we take a real honest look at the scripts that have been passed down to us from generation to generation and the roles that as men we choose to take on in our everyday lives. So speaking of—
I would argue that the reason we have a generation of purposeless young men, we have the Lost Boys generation right now, that are focused primarily on their emotional state, their emotive state, is exactly the proof against what he's talking about right now. It contradicts everything he said. It's the kids who don't know. You want to know, what was it? The GSS study where we're looking at like boys between the ages of 18 and 29 or 24 or 29, somewhere around there. For the last 10 years, really from 2008 to 2018, for that 10-year stretch, you're looking at an incidence of sexlessness that has skyrocketed. It is 10 times what it was in 2008 versus 2018. Men aren't getting laid. Men aren't going out there and doing it. Men don't see any part. You want to know why black pill and MGTOW and really even in some cases, I would say TradCon as well. You want to know why those guys are so confused? You want to know why there is that huge, where the millions of guys are? They're the guys that are confused about this. They're the guys who don't understand why they feel the way they do. They don't understand why they have to do the things that the old order way of doing things requires them to. They don't see there's no incentive for that. And the reason for that is because they've been acculturated, they've been socialized as defective girls. Let's raise our boys as if they're defective girls. So that's how you get this guy. And he's still preaching to certainly preaching to the choir, but it's a problem that he thinks he has the solution to, that he is actually the creator of, or certainly the reinforcer of. He's the product of that problem and is reinforcing that very problem.
Of scripts, the first script I ever got came from my dad. My dad is awesome. He's loving, he's kind, he's sensitive, he's nurturing, he's here.
All of those adjectives, would you say those are masculine adjectives? Do those describe a masculine set, or do they describe a feminine side?
He's crying. But, sorry, Dad, as a kid, I resented him for it because I blamed him for making me soft, which wasn't welcomed in the small town in Oregon that we had moved to.
Because he did.
Because being soft meant that I was bullied. See, my dad wasn't traditionally masculine, so he didn't teach me how to use my hands. He didn't teach me how to hunt, how to fight, man stuff. Instead, he taught me what he knew, that being a man was about sacrifice. and doing whatever you can to take care of and provide for your family.
Oh boy, that's a real good one right there. And I'm gonna halt it right there. So first off, he's already saying that he was not brought up to be tough. He was brought up soft. He was brought up in a very feminine way. So here's this guy who still thinks he has to be like super masculine, as you know, because he's going to get bullied. He's going to talk about how he was bullied here in a minute, but he was, and obviously so. I wonder if, and as cruel as this is going to sound, and we have had this discussion on Rule Zero several times, is there is, in my thinking anyways, there is an evolutionary benefit to bullying. And I know that's going to sound horrible because it's like, oh, I'm always bullied. I can't believe Rollo just said that. I'm just saying that is real true bullying bad? Yeah, it can be. Hazing can be taken to an extreme. But the hazing and things like that exist as a form of testing, as a form of, are you strong enough? Are you man enough? Are you tough enough that I can depend on you in a really bad situation, in a survival situation? Can I depend on you? So if I can make you cry just by poking you in the chest, or if I can just sort of give you grief, like when guys like insult each other as a form of just sort of like, you know, hanging out and just being cool with somebody, like you give your buddy shit. I do that all the time. Like guys do this all the time. But we have actually the last two generations of guys who don't understand how to interact, not just with women, but also with other men, because they cannot make the distinction between bullying or hazing and a guy just kind of ribbing you, just like fucking with you, you know, like messing around with you. They can't make that distinction. And so they either overthink it, or they think that they're being picked on or bullied on. And I would argue, now again, this is open for debate if you want to debate me on this, but I would argue that the toughening up is a evolutionary, let's say, mechanism or dynamic amongst men to determine dependability, to determine whether or not that guy's going to have his back, to determine whether that guy, when we're facing the enemy or we're trying to take down the woolly mammoth or whatever it is, we're trying to run down game, that if shit goes south, that you're going to stand and hold the spear instead of drop the spear and run. Because if that's the case, you're a liability to my own survival, and you're a liability to the survival of the tribe. Now, people say, well, we don't live in tribes anymore, Rollo. We don't need to worry about this stuff anymore. How silly, how juvenile. We should all be these caring, feeling, emotive, sensitive, whatever those adjectives you use, right? We should all be like that. And again, that comes from the idea that the ideal state of experiencing life is through a female lens. But also, it's the presumption that we don't need that anymore. We don't need survival traits anymore. We don't need to worry about standing on the spear or running away, dropping the spear and running away. That's the presumption. Oh, well, we don't need that anymore. What's the first thing for guys in the military? Here's a question. For guys in the military, what's the first thing that they do when you go to boot camp? They got to make you a killer. They got to make you somebody who can fight. It's one of the reasons why they have such a trouble with new recruits today, is because you're all fat. Because they can't do the simple, most basic, you know, physical fitness tests. They can't do pull-ups. You know, why is it that there are so few women in combat roles? Because they're fat and they lack the upper body strength to do the things that are necessary for them. But so what do we say? Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll change the test. You don't have to worry about that. Now, who needs that now? All you got to be able to do is use a keyboard and a mouse, and you can just, you know, call in a drone strike, and you're a warrior. So what's the first thing they use? I mean, certainly back in World War I, World War II, Korea, and I'm thinking of American conflicts here, but like the first thing that they do, Vietnam, anybody who's seen like Full Metal Jacket, they got to turn some poor farm kid into a killer. And that's hard to do, especially if you don't have the killer instinct, but they've got to, at least you have to internalize the idea that you are going to hurt somebody. And you've got to be okay with that, because if you don't, the other guy is going to hurt you and probably kill you. It's like, George S. Patton, right? It's not, wars aren't won by dying for your country. It's making the other poor sucker die for his country. And how do you get to that point? You've got to have tough guys. You have to have guys who know what they're doing. But we say today, and he's going to say this here in a minute, is that we don't really need that. We're civilized. We've risen above that. We're beyond war. We're beyond all that because now we can emote and it's better to be soft and pliable and more feminine until a more masculine country wants to invade your feminine country because you don't think that it's necessary anymore. Now, from an evolutionary perspective, you can't really help that. As a guy, as I said before, like when you, what is it, the woman who was shooting, was doing steroids, right? She's taking gear and she says, "Oh, I can't believe I'm angry all the time. I'm aggressive. I'm horny, right? My libido has gone up. I can't believe you guys are like this all the time," because that's men's natural biological state. So to say, "Oh, it's all about this learned traditional masculinity," bullshit. That's the way you are built. Your testosterone, the way you are, your endocrine system, right? Your glandular system, the way your brain architecture works. But we're going to say that the female way, the female experience of life is the way that we ought to be experiencing life. It's the way that we ought to be living, right? And we'd be so much better if we just let women run the show, right? Well, that's hard to do, or it's hard to be this. It's hard to be a man. Sorry, it's hard to be a woman when you're a man physically because you are not built the same way. You have different motives. You have different mating strategies. You have different hormones floating around in your bloodstream. You have 12 to 17 times the amount of serum testosterone in your bloodstream. People jump all up my ass for that too. I wrote that in book 1. People get really upset when I dispel the idea that they'll say, "Oh, women are just as into sex as men are. Women are just as horny as men are." No, they're not. That is a biological impossibility because men have 12 to 17 times the amount of serum testosterone in there. A healthy, red-blooded young man has way more testosterone. If that were the case, there would be strip clubs for women. If that were the case, you would see women going to jail for the same offenses that men do all the time. We would have the same expectations, let's say, of self-control over our libidos for men as we do for women. Is a biological impossibility. Now, women are far more sexual than most men give them credit for, although I think that's changing because of the internet and because of the new order. But whenever somebody says, "Oh, Rollo, but women are just as sexual as men," no, they are not, and they never will be. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so pull your head out of your ass when it comes to that stupid. Here, women would love for you to think that. They would love for you to think that. Oh, we're just as sexual as men, but we're just so repressed. If men would just let us express our sexuality, then we would be, we would really be. We would show you something, Mister. No, you wouldn't. Because you're built differently, ladies. Women still, I heard this on Fresh and Fit. I keep hearing this all the time. I've heard this since the day I started writing in the manosphere, or the day I started, typing things out on So Suave, right? Women are just as sexual as men. No, they're not. You're not. And that's a good thing. Or you'll get the double standard thing. I heard this on Fresh and Fit, which is the double standard. Why is it that men can go and bang a bunch of girls and women, they're seen as sluts if they do the same thing? It's like, yeah, you're right. That is it a double standard? You're damn right it is. Is it fair? No, it is absolutely not fair. Although today, I don't think it makes much difference. Because women have way higher body counts than men do. By and large, on the statistical average, women have way higher body counts in a westernized society anyways. We're a sexually permissive society. Women are going to dominate that sexual marketplace. We already know that. We see this every day. I don't think I need to reinforce that. But we still, even in spite of all that, we still say, there's this double standard. It's horrible. Why can't women just be as promiscuous as guys? Well, first off, there's the biological problem right there because you're simply not going to be that way. And then second of all, you're not guys. You're not men. Your sexual strategy is going to be a lot different than men's are. Men's sexual strategy is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. For women, it's quality and not quantity. So don't cry about how horrible and unfair it is and misogynistic and patriarchal it is that women can't bang as many guys as many guys as men bang women. It's this completely nonsensical way of thinking, but it's old order, which is exactly what this guy is complaining about. It's all society. No, it's not society. You are not built as a woman. That's why men cannot experience life through like directly or as perfectly, let's just say, as a woman can. Now he's saying, wouldn't it be better if guys could be more like women? You can argue that all the time. I don't think so, but you can argue that. But it doesn't make any difference because you're a guy. You're a different machine. The blank slate is horseshit. Social constructionism is horseshit. That's why. So, but if I'm a guy and I feel this way, and I'm naturally aggressive and I have a much higher libido, and if I experience life as a guy does, or I process emotions differently than women do, which is another part of another function of the machine that is the male human, but yet in doing so, in processing emotions the way that a man would naturally process emotions, I'm wrong. Socially, I'm wrong because the correct way to do that is how a woman would do it. And that's how when we have like a little 5-year-old boy that we're teaching us to be a defective little girl, he doesn't know what he gets to this point where he becomes Mr. Baldoni here, and he gets to be in his mid-20s and he's confused. He's either confused about masculinity because he can't help the way he feels because of the machine. And he can't help the way that he feels because an entire society is saying, you should feel more like a woman. You should process emotion before reason. That's the correct way to do it, Mr. Baldoni. You have to do it that way. And he's like, I don't understand. Well, it's the idea that social conditioning can in some way override that. And maybe it does, but should it? Should we live in a state? Should we live in a condition where we have to continually override what our natural instincts are? This is where I butt heads with a lot of traditionalists. This is where I butt heads with tradcons all the time, because it's like what you should be versus what you are. And I'm of the opinion that it's good to have higher aspirations. It's good to think above yourself, I guess is the best way I can say it. But I also want to fight. I also want to fuck. I also want to, run as fast as I can. I want to feel the blood pumping through I want to be just as much an animal as anything else. But I also want to paint a masterpiece, and I want to write poetry, and I want to, think higher thoughts. Right? I want to be and I don't see that if there's a balance to be had, that's the balance. Not balance my masculine with my feminine. No, balance your animal with your higher order thinking, your higher order self. That's what you should be balancing. But we're going to focus on whether or not the anima and the animus are something.
But there was another role I learned how to play from my dad, who I discovered learned it from his dad, a state senator who later in life had to work nights as a janitor to support his family. And he never told a soul. That role was to suffer in secret. And now 3 generations later, I find myself playing that role too. So why couldn't my grandfather just reach out to another man and ask for help? Why does my dad to this day still think he's got to do it all on his own? I know men who would rather die than tell another man that they're hurting. But it's not because we're just all like strong, silent types. It's not. A lot of us men are really good at making friends and talking, just not about anything real.
Okay, what's real? Now we're going to talk about communication styles here. One more incident, one more preference. Women communicate way differently than men do. Women infer communication and this is proven, and women they love it. Oh yeah, of course we do. We're so much better at communication than you guys are. No, you just communicate differently, and you have different priorities when you're communicating. Women communicate covertly. Men communicate overtly. And the reason why he thinks that there is some kind of deficit in men's communication here is because most men don't want to or don't naturally or instinctively communicate like women do. It's not that we don't have deep, meaningful conversations. Like hell, I mean, we talk about philosophy, we talk about you can talk about all kinds of stuff. But because we don't communicate like a woman communicates, We don't prioritize the emotional side, how I felt about the conversation, before the information of that conversation. Because we don't do that, we're somehow we're flawed, or there's something wrong with us. We're defective men because we don't communicate like women, and that's what he's really complaining about here. Oh, it's not that we don't want to have guys who, you know, say their feelings or reach out when they're hurting, blah blah blah. Like, guys do this all the time. We just don't do it like women do. When women communicate, it's, like I said, it's innuendo, it's subcommunications, it's physical, communication, it's body language, it's intonation. Hell, I mean, it's just, women can get more communication out of just like, facial expressions than guys do. Guys can be in the same room as women, and women will be like, "Oh, did you see that did you see that look, that dirty look that bitch just gave me?" And guys will be like, "What are you talking about?" But they, like, women pick up on that stuff. Men do not, because men prioritize things differently in a conversation. Men prioritize information and content in that conversation. Women prioritize context. How did the conversation make them feel? Women get together just to communicate because they enjoy communication. That's as a result of human evolution. Women had to do that. They had to evolve a greater faculties or facility for communication than men did. Men prioritize content and information. How do I solve the problem? How do I kill the woolly mammoth? How do I do these? How do I fix the car? How do I do these things? That's the prioritization. It's not that emotion isn't important to guys. It's not the first thing in the order of importance when it comes to communication. For women, it is, well, how is this going to make me feel? Did you see the look, that dirty look that bitch just gave me? Only a slut would wear that, right? Well, they're gathering data, I guess, from what that woman is, the subcommunications that woman is expressing. Guys, on the other hand, it's not that we don't think about how a conversation made us feel. It's just that we prioritize different things in the conversation when we are communicating. But because we live in a gynocentric social order that says the way women communicate is the right way to communicate, we get this guy. That's why. That's why he feels bad. I can't communicate like a woman does. It's so unfair. It must be because of the fucking social order. No, you're a dude. That's why. You're a guy who communicates or has the idea that he doesn't understand why it's so difficult, why it hurts so much, why don't men communicate better like women do? And now he's going to use it as a point of pride. It's like virtue signaling at that point. I do, but most guys don't. These millions of guys who are bad humans, they don't communicate like women, and they'd be good humans if they did. Like me. I learned how to do it. My dad, my sweet, soft, innocent dad who made me nurturing and sensitive, he taught me how to communicate like a girl. And he's proud of that. He's doing a TEDx talk explaining exactly why he is proud of it.
If it's about work or sports or politics or women, we have no problem sharing our opinions. But if it's about our insecurities or our struggles, our fear of failure, then it's almost like we become paralyzed. At least
we're punished for it.
I do. So some of the ways that I've been practicing breaking free of this behavior are by creating experiences that force me to be vulnerable. So if there's something I'm experiencing shame around in my life, I practice diving straight into it, no matter how scary it is, and sometimes even publicly. Because then in doing so, I take away its power. And my display of vulnerability can, in some cases, give other men permission to do the same. As an example, a little while ago, I was wrestling with an issue in my life that I knew I needed to talk to my guy friends about. But I was so paralyzed by fear that they would judge me and see me as weak, and I would lose my standing as a leader, that I knew I had to take them out of town on a 3-day guys trip just to open up. And guess what? It wasn't until the end of the 3rd day that I finally found the strength to talk to them about what I was going through. But when I did, something amazing happened. I realized that I wasn't alone. Because my guy...
Does it sound like he wants to communicate like a woman? That's what guys do, or excuse me, that's what women do. Women make events to communicate with other women. Women will say, "Hey, let's go down to Starbucks and catch up." The purpose, like for men, when it comes to innately thinking about communication, like I said, it's content first and then it's feelings. For women, it's feelings and then it's content. You know, what's going on. You want to know why gossip is a natural proclivity for women? That's why. Because they like the feeling that comes from the indignation that comes from gossip. Did you know what she said? And this guy, when he talks about communicating with guys and I'm going to have a guys weekend and then I'm going to tell them all about my problem, whatever. We still don't know what the hell the problem was. Is he cheating on his wife? I don't know. Does he have a wife? But this is a guy who is proud of the fact that he's like, if this was a girl and says, I had to tell my girlfriend something, and so I decided to set up a girls' weekend out, or a GNO, right? Or we went down to Vegas or whatever, and we're just going to catch up and talk. It's the girls' weekend. Would that be any different than what this guy is doing right now? When guys ask me this, they will say, Rollo, hey, I've got this, we're going to do the Rational Male book group. I'm like, awesome, good. Do that. If that's what you feel inspired to do, please do that. But I always tell guys this is, if that's the case, make sure that there's something else that you're doing. Have a car to fix. Go fishing. Do you guys like martial arts? Do you guys like to go shoot guns at the range? What is it that you do? Women talk, men do. Men, the way that men communicate is they've got something that's going on in their environment. They have a problem to solve. They have a project to work on. Men communicate best when they have some focus that isn't the actual communication itself. So when I hear a guy talk about like, oh, we had the guys weekend so we could all get together and talk about our feelings. What, do you have a drum circle? Did you get in a hot house or something like that? What did you do? It's not just like the purpose, the point of the actual gathering is not about the actual whatever they're doing. It's about, I'm going to talk about my feelings. That's why I asked you guys all here today. Well, that's what chicks do. That's what I would expect from a woman to do. It's not that your problems aren't important. It's not that you shouldn't actually discuss them with guys. That's fine. But look at the way that this guy is going about this.
Guys had also been struggling. And as soon as I found the strength and the courage to share my shame, it was gone. Now, I've learned over time that if I want to practice vulnerability, then I need to build myself a system of accountability. So I've been really blessed as an actor. I've built a really wonderful fan base, really, really sweet and engaged. And so I decided to use my social platform as kind of this Trojan horse, wherein I could create a daily practice of authenticity and vulnerability. The response has been incredible. It's been affirming, it's been heartwarming. I get tons of love and press and positive messages daily.
All in female publications. People Magazine, Cosmo. What else is on there? I can't see what else you had on there, but look at the press who's getting.
But it's all from a certain demographic. Women.
Yep.
This is real.
Of course it is.
Why are only women following me? Where are the men?
That's why.
About a year ago, I posted this photo. Now, afterwards, I was scrolling through some of the comments, and I noticed that one of my female fans had tagged her boyfriend in the picture. And her boyfriend responded by saying, "Please stop tagging me in gay shit. Thanks." As if being gay makes you less of a man, right? So I took a deep breath, and I responded. I said very politely that I was just curious because I'm on an exploration of masculinity, and I wanted to know why my love for my wife qualified as gay shit. And then I said, honestly, I just wanted to learn. Now, he immediately wrote me back. I thought he was going to go off on me, but instead he apologized. He told me how growing up, public displays of affection were looked down on. He told me that he was wrestling and struggling with his ego and how much he loved his girlfriend and how thankful he was for her patience.
That is some major gay shit. I'm sorry to say. Now, it's not so much the response. It's how it is framed here is what I'm talking about. So, I can see, and what's funny is I can see that, like, I'm probably have had that. Imagine me going and posting a picture of myself kissing my wife. I'm sure there'll be some people who go, oh, that's great. Then there'll be guys who are going to say, that's some major gay shit, right? Remember that response wasn't to him. It was to his girlfriend who posted that picture to him. That's why. So it wasn't necessarily about that. But so here now, of course, he wants to say, well, see, men are secretly, they put up this front where they'll say that is some major gay shit, right? And then they'll also say, like, now he's going to say, oh, but he's really not like that. He's really hurting. He's struggling with his ego. He has a problem. He's actually a broken man because he believes in all of this toxic masculinity. Because his first impulse, his instinctive impulse, his natural impulse was to say, this is like okay, fine, whatever, it's not about like, oh, public displays of affection or whatever, or no, that's just what guys do. That's how we communicate. You'll notice here that when he's talking about like what the response is versus what the follow-up was, it's like the guy's writing this book, and whether or not that's honest, whether or not, I don't know. I'm not going to say it is. I'm just going to presume it is at this stage. But what he's trying to do, the point that he's trying to make here is that all guys are really just women underneath that masculinity. They're just underneath, like men. If men could just be themselves, if men were unrepressed by this toxically masculine patriarchal society, their true nature would be to be just like women, to express themselves, to struggle with ego, to think that they have to puff their chest up, right? That's what we're intended to believe that men really are. And I wanted to talk about that in this particular, I know we're almost halfway through this, but I wanted to pull that out there because when we talk about what makes a man authentic, if you are in a gynocentric social order and you've been acculturated and you've been conditioned by the blue pill to think that masculinity is either confusing or it's demonized, okay, well, what is positive masculinity? What is a good form of masculinity? Because if you ask women today, there is no good form of masculinity unless you're the alpha male guy that they really want to get with, and they don't even understand why they don't understand why they're attracted to the convicted felon. They don't understand why dark triad personality traits makes a guy so hot. You can ask women that and they will go, I don't know. And they'll laugh and giggle about it. Oh, I don't know. He's just hot. Well, but he kills babies. Well, everybody has faults. That's what you're going to get, because it's like they're more than willing to forgive that kind of stuff. But if you ask them, you say, why is it that's hot to you? They won't be able to tell you that. And that guy is the guy that they want to get with is the polar opposite of Mr. I gotta struggle with my ego. That's the polar opposite of that. And so rather than trying to figure out the natural state, then our, men's nature and women's nature, rather than do that, we've got this nice narrative that says your real nature is not that act that you put on. Your authentic masculine male self isn't the act that society has told you. Because if you were really you, if you really felt that you could be who you want to be, you'd be the guy who would invite your boys together so that you can get together and talk about your feelings. Because that's what women do. So the ideal man in a gynocentric social order, the guy who's the ideal masculine male guy is a woman. Responds, communicates like a woman, interprets her surroundings like a woman, prioritizes emotion before reason, is not tough, is sensitive, is pliable, is vulnerable. Women are the vulnerable sex. You say, well, they're the weaker sex. Okay. In some states, men and women are not equal, but let's say, okay, in some instances, depending on the challenge, women are the weaker sex. Got it. But they are universally the vulnerable sex. That's why victimology works so well for women, because we instinctively, as men, see women as potential victims or potentially vulnerable at the very least. We feel an instinctive need to protect women, to put ourselves in front of the bullets and women that we don't know. That's what we do. Sorry, my voice is going. Why is that? Well, because we're men. That's the way the machine works. That's the way the machine evolved. That's what our psychological mental firmware does for us. That's the instinct. But in a gynocentric social order, the perfect man is a woman. He emotes like a woman. He communicates like a woman. He thinks like a woman. He's sensitive and vulnerable, the vulnerable sex, right? He's vulnerable like a woman. And men think that that's a strength. Women will love me more the more vulnerable I am. Bullshit. No. And then right now in this new order of social media and instant communication and data access that we have, we can see for a fact, black and white daily, that it is bullshit. It's exactly the opposite. But now we're going to talk about, he's confessing his soul to he's bearing his soul to me. Yeah, some dude online. But we're going to take that as a universal cosmic, my anecdotal experience. That's another thing that women do. They take their anecdotal personal experience and they extrapolate that into the universal cosmic, everybody's doing it experience. So in fact, he even says this, as a man, that's the first thing that women say when they want to tell me like I'm wrong. As a woman, no, as you. Ladies, if you're ever going to come at me with a criticism or whatever, don't start with, as a woman, let me tell you what I think or what women think. No, ladies, the reason why you do that is because women are like, people always say women are hive mind, right? It's that herd immunity or that herd mentality. And in a way that's true because women tend to be more egalitarian. Women tend to be more communitarian. That's part of your evolved mental firmware, which is why when a woman feels offended when there's an attack that she perceives on the sisterhood or on womankind, that's when women will step up to the mic and go, I'm a woman, and I'm going to tell you how all women feel. No, that's not how all women feel, but women instinctively think that that's what they have to say to represent the sisterhood uberalis, to represent womankind in totality. So what happens then is that her anecdotal personal experience as a woman defines the universal definition of whatever dynamic that she's offended by, right? So it's usually if I state something that is sort of unflattering to female nature, women will step up to the mic and they'll go, as a woman. That's exactly what this dude did in the very beginning of this TED Talk. As a man, shut up, dude. You're not speaking for me. You're not speaking for any of us. And you know why guys get more pissed off at that than women do? Because women will rarely try to reel their sisters in as a result. Like if a woman goes up and she says, as a woman, let me tell you about this, this, and this. And she's in a group of like a mixed group of men and women or whatever, there will rarely be a woman who will go, yeah, that's not necessarily true. That's not my experience at all. They rarely will do that. Whereas if a guy goes up there and says, as a man, let me tell you how men feel. There'll be dudes that'll be like, shut up, dude. Yeah, for you, maybe. Let me tell you something else. Guys will do that because men are merit-based. Our respectability is based on our conditions of like what it is that we do that makes us respectable. How do we merit that respect? So guys, when a dude comes up there and pretends to speak for mankind, guys will be like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Let me tell you something. Here's my experience, right? Or they'll default to reason, right? They'll go, well, statistically you're wrong, and let me tell you why you're wrong. In fact, I've been doing that this whole podcast. I can show you all kinds of empirical evidence that shows that this guy is, or will show that the nebulous society that he's claiming is conditioning boys to be like tough and, and be patriarchal doesn't exist anymore. I can show you that. But the first thing he does when he goes up there is says, oh, as a man, let me tell you how men think. No, don't tell women how I think, because I think you're wrong. And guys are much more comfortable with telling another guy that he's wrong because we have that dominance hierarchy. We have that competence hierarchy. That's how men think. Men think in capitalist terms. Women think in communist terms. Women are innately communist. Men are innately capitalist because we're based on a merit-based understanding of how the world works. You have to perform. Men have a burden of performance. Women just are. Men must become. Now, that's a very nice catch-all phrase. It's easy to throw that out there, but it's true in a global and a larger sense. Men's identities and what men are, their respectability, their status, everything else that's very, very important to guys, that comes from an innate way of thinking about the universe and the world and the male experience. The male experience is merit-based. The female experience is community-based. It's we all got to, or the strength in numbers, the sisterhood uber alles. There's no brotherhood uber alles. It'd be nice if there was. And if there is, it's usually by bonds of like, if there's a brotherhood or fraternity, it's rarely by, the classical fraternities have rarely been by anything other than blood or nationality or tribe. So it's whatever is in the best interest of my nation, whatever is in the best interest of my family, whatever is in the best interest of my tribe. And maybe religion a little bit, and because that's really another form of tribalism. But usually it's like, and within that nation, within that tribe, there are still hierarchies of men. So it's my tribe versus your tribe. Okay, well, now you're talking about teams. That's really what team sports really is. But it's the fraternity of guys, the brotherhood of guys is almost always dependent, not on the sex. Now, we're all men, right? No, we're not. We're all men who are from the same family. We're all men who are from the same team. We're all men who are from the same name, the organization. Women is just women. You have a vagina? You have a vagina? Welcome to Team Woman. There ain't no Team Man. There's only Team Woman. And every time that guys try to say, no, we're gonna make an organization based on men. You know where that goes? Nowhere. Certainly not in a gynocentric social order. Because you're going to get guys that are going to try to dominate other guys until the point where you're going to get two teams that are in the same team and they're going to split off and they're going to be against each other. That's just how it works. Sorry, them's the mechanics. And it would be very nice, ideal thinking, high idealism thinking, to think that we could do that. Like, oh, there's going to be a brotherhood uber alles. It'd be nice if that was the way it was, but that's not how we're built as human beings. We need to outperform one another so that we can reproduce, so that we can have a better life than the other guy. And it's not because we want to crush the other guy necessarily. It's because we want access to the best of the best. To be a powerful man is to acquire territory, resources, and women. That's what you want to know. What defines every stereotypical alpha, whatever your ideology is, whatever your thought patterns are, that is what makes for a powerful man. The dynastic emperors of China, kings in Europe, whatever it is, tribal chieftains in the Amazon rainforest, access to women, resources, and territory, just like any other group of primates. And that's what makes a guy. It's essentially that boils down to those three. Now, there's a lot of complexity and nuances that go into that with human beings, but that's what it is. And this guy has been thoroughly conditioned to think like a woman. So it doesn't even occur to the dude that competition or like he most likely Baldoni dominates his group of friends, the guys he got. Come on, guys, let's go have a guy weekend. Yeah, they're like, yeah, cool, no, great. Baldoni's coming, good. That means the hot bitches are showing up too. Let's go, right? Or they defer to him as far as authority is concerned. It's not so much like when women are talking to one another, it's not so much about like authority as it is we're going to enjoy each other's company. Now, women hate each other. Yes, women do compete with each other as well, but there is a sisterhood uber alles as opposed to a brotherhood uber alles. So let's keep going here.
And then a few weeks later, he messaged me again. This time he sent me a photo of him on one knee proposing.
It worked.
And all he said was, thank you. I've been this guy. I get it. See, publicly, he was just playing his role, rejecting the feminine, right? But secretly, he was waiting for permission to express himself, to be seen, to be heard. And all he needed was another man holding him accountable and creating a safe space for him to feel. And the transformation was instant.
That is a major feminine way of thinking. And also, understand this. The measure of success, the metric of that guy being a real man is to emote. is to feel comfortable in that safe space and not feel ashamed. And here I am proposing to my girl. Thank you, Jason, or just whatever his name is. Thank you for helping me out, because now the woman who I'm proposing to, I'm completing her mating strategy. The goal is to satisfy the woman. That's what it is. The goal is to put a ring on her finger. And that's why, oh, yay, thank you. Oh, so good. Oh, great. Let's reward good looking guy. But again, it's not the woman going, you know what? I want to have your babies. It's I'm down on one knee. And that is what defines victory. That is what defines the goal state in all of this is satisfying, consolidating on the female strategy. That's the best way to do it, right? Again, you got to get married. You got to have babies. Well, that's, I'm not saying men don't want to have babies. They do. But today, the victory, the goal is to find some sort of long-term commitment with a woman. Why? Why is that?
I loved this experience because it showed me that transformation is possible, even over direct messages. So I wanted to figure out how I could reach more men, but of course, none of them were following me.
Yeah, why do you think
So I tried an experiment. I started posting more stereotypically masculine things. Like my challenging workouts, my meal plans, my journey to heal my body after an injury. And guess what happened? Men started to write me. And then, out of the blue, for the first time in my entire career, a male fitness magazine called me. And they said they wanted to honor me as one of their game changers. Is that really game changing? Or is it just conforming? And see, that's the problem. It's totally cool for men to follow me when I talk about guy stuff.
Never mind that most men's fitness magazines are run by women. Most likely that's why. I would wonder this. So maybe the incidence of guys following him are a little bit more because he put out those, his workout videos. But are those heteronormative men? First of all. Second of all, maybe they are. Maybe they are. But second of all, what was the increase? I wish I had like the analytics for this, like what his engagement went up to when you go and you put that stuff out there. Because I would say that, yeah, maybe more guys started following him as a result of that, like trying to figure out like his workout plan or whatever. And he's nothing special, first of all. And as far as like fitness and working out is concerned, I mean, hell, go follow Drew Bay. Drew Bay is an old dude, and he is old. I hate to call you. He's actually probably younger than I am, but he's an old guy, and he kicks ass, man. He works out real. He's in the fitness niche right now. But if he goes and puts that out there, he has like if Drew puts that out there. Sorry, no hate on you, Drew. I love you to death. But he puts that out there. That's a much different engagement than this guy who decided to go and like that. What's funny to me is he thinks that he's racking his brain. What do I do to get more guys to follow me? Well, I'll do conventionally masculine things like working out and nutrition and getting yourself in shape and showing my biceps. And here's my workout regimen. Imagine that. Guys want to, it worked. And it's not because it goes against the female imperative, or it's like you're right about this female correct society. It's not that. It's because that's a guy. That's what dudes do. That's conventionally masculine. Of course they're going to do that. And I would also argue that he probably saw an increase or spike in women following him as well when he started doing that. He's not going to talk about that, because he wants to beat up on conventional masculinity today.
And I conform to gender norms.
Yeah, you did.
But if I talk about how much I love my wife or my daughter or my 10-day-old son, how I believe that marriage is challenging but beautiful, or how as a man I struggle with body dysmorphia, or if I promote gender equality, then only the women show up. Where are the men?
They're out doing men stuff. That's what they're doing. They're out doing men's things. They don't respond to that. Not because they haven't been indoctrinated well enough, but because that's, or maybe they have, but that's because they don't have that innate instinctive. And isn't it interesting that it doesn't even occur to him, it doesn't even occur to this guy that men might not be responding to those things, not because they instinctually don't respond to those things, but because they haven't been conditioned properly enough to respond to those things. To actually, well, when I talk about gender equality, men, it's usually women and not men. Yeah, of course, because it benefits a feminine imperative. Guys they don't care about that. They want to know how to get laid. They want to know how to look better. They want to know how to get built, get your bodybuilding. They want to get jacked. They want to make money, and they want to get laid. That's what men instinctually want. And it's nothing wrong with that. The only time that there's something wrong with that is when you think that it should be something different. When you, as the product of a gynocentric social order, think that men ought to be, oh, I gotta talk about body dysmorphia. I gotta talk about how my feelings are about gender inequality. No, they don't. And you know what the final arbiter of that is? Social media. Randomly going out there and putting yourself out there and say, I did all this. It's also interesting that he did this on his social media. It's like, I'm just asking random dudes what they're thinking. Yeah, well, guess what? You're doing essentially what he's doing is field research. He's doing experimentation. He might as well work for Pew Research, right? Do a poll. Here's your poll. Guys aren't interested in that. Primarily, guys aren't interested in that. If you were in a rock band or you're a rap star or you had something else going for you guys, like, it's amazing to me that like a good looking male actor is so dumbfounded that guys don't want to follow him because he's a heartthrob, because you belong on the cover of a romance novel, man. That's why guys don't. How come guys aren't into romance novels? I can't believe it. If they could just be better humans, then they would be into it and they'd want to talk about this. If men were better humans, they would have more female interests. Bullshit. No, they won't. And you know what? You're finding out about that live in real time there, Mr. Baldoni.
So men. Men that
don't exist in that audience?
I understand. Growing up, we tend to challenge each other. We got to be the toughest, the strongest, the bravest men that we can be.
We have to become, yes.
And for many of us, myself included, our identities are wrapped up in whether or not at the end of the day we feel like we're man enough. But I got a challenge for all the guys, because men love challenges. I challenge you to see if you can use the same qualities that you feel make you a man to go deeper into yourself. Your strength, your bravery, your toughness. Can we redefine what those mean and use them to explore our hearts?
Our hearts. Sound like he's prioritizing emotion? Because that's whenever somebody says you follow your heart, it's all about, remember that from the remember that shit from the Will Smith video? That's Jada Pinkett Smith. That's all about healing. It's all about it's all about love. When that's the priority and it's not using your freaking brain, when you're not prioritizing reason instead of emotion, you're prioritizing the female experience. You are agreeing that the correct way to think is with your heart. Follow your heart, because your heart will never lead you astray. Bullshit. I can show you. In fact, I can show you statistics about divorce statistics about what was it? 42% of women or 42% of children are born out of wedlock. Why? Well, because I wanted a kid. I follow my heart. I can show you statistics that are directly related to men prioritizing emotion before reason. Anytime a guy says, or a woman says, follow your heart, or you need to get deeper inside of yourself. That's bullshit. First of all, that's major, like that you container. What does that mean? What does that mean? From an emotional standpoint, I get it. It plays really well with the women in the audience, but what does that mean? How can I use that? Oh, I gotta look, turn it deeper and into yourself. You gotta find meaning. No, I need purpose, dude. The kids that are out there, the boys that are out there, the lost guys, the lost boys generation, they're not looking for meaning. They're not looking for deeper inside of themselves. They're not looking at, analyze your heart. That's not what they're looking for. They need answers. They need direction. They are rudderless. And they are rudderless because of guys like you repeating this mantra over and over, generation after generation. That's why. They need something to do. They need a direction. They need somebody to say, you know what? You need to start thinking about things not from your heart, but from your head. Guys love a challenge. It's funny to me that he's going to reinforce this feminized bullshit with conventionally masculine traits. Guys love a challenge, right? Yeah, we do. We generally do, because we are instinctively, for the most part, men are more competitive than women are. We have to be. Because if we're not the best of the best at something, and women don't recognize that, we don't pass our genes on into the next generation. We are the products of men who competed well enough, or looked good enough, or aped the behaviors well enough, or tricked enough people, or tricked enough women to believe that they're the shit, and they pass their genes on to the next generation. That's competition. Men must become, women just are. So when you hear guys like this, what they're saying is essentially the opposite. That women must become, and men just are. Women have to become better. We have to support our women. Women, ladies in the audience, you're all right. And it's so hard. I'm here with your struggle. And the struggle is we need to make you more. You need to become women. And men, we just have to look inside. We're enough, right? That's the whole title of the video. Man, are we man enough? Even the organization, we are man enough. It's all founded on horseshit. It's all founded on a female perspective, or a female directed goal of what masculinity or manhood should look like. And that's really where he goes with this. And it's ironic. And he's completely oblivious to this, that he's using conventionally masculine standards and conventionally masculine aspects to reinforce the idea that men just are. We should just be. That's all we just are. Women need to become. It's the opposite. Absolute 100% opposite that we evolve. But we think that should be the idealized state. The idealized state for a guy like this is to be more feminine, to get in touch with your emotions and express yourself emotionally. And It's like, that's what's getting us into the trouble that we're in right now, because we prioritize emotion above reason. But here we go. And then remember, this is in 2018.
Are you brave enough to be vulnerable?
Man up and be vulnerable.
To reach out to another man when you need help? To dive headfirst into your shame? Are you strong enough to be sensitive?
So here's the appeal. Here's the appeal to conventional masculinity, to be more feminine. Are you man enough to be a chick? Are you man enough to be vulnerable, to identify with the most vulnerable sex? Ask your friend for help. Like, guys ask their friends for help all the time. They just don't do it like chicks. That's the problem. Is we presume that the right way to seek help is to do it like a woman would. Women get all upset. You don't go to the, they think the guys are just boneheads and pigheaded because they don't want to go to get a colonoscopy, right? Or they don't want to go see the doctor or whatever. And it takes a strong woman to get you out of the house and go see the doctor, kind of thing. And it's not so much, like, for the most part, guys are more performance based. They're interested in other things. I would say it's not so much a point of masculine pride not to go see the doctor or go talk to your friend about something. It's not about that so much as it is really sheer laziness. And then second of all, it's like guys are expected to just get it, to figure it out on their own. Remember when I told you guys this, I said, the guy who doesn't get it is the guy who has to be taught by another guy what the nature of women is. Women want a guy who just gets it. They want a guy who doesn't have to be taught to be masculine. And the problem that I have with this is, and guys like Mark Manson, guys like Matt Hussey, and a lot of these guys who are making a good chunk of change off of this same narrative. Like, this guy would make a really great Matt Hussey, perfect. In fact, he's essentially mouthing the same words that Matt Hussey or Mark Manson have been for a long time right now. And they're appealing to like his audience, not men. Oh, man. No, there's no men in the audience. Why on earth are you there? Because you know what? If you weren't on the TEDx stage and you went somewhere, you came to a red pill event or you were doing something, people would laugh your ass off the stage. Or would they? Because I see a lot of new players coming into the manosphere right now who are saying exactly the same fucking thing. And that's exactly why I wanted to talk about this today. There are too many guys in the manosphere who are starting to sound like this guy. Who are starting to say, you need to look inside yourself and follow your heart. Fuck you. That's what got us into this problem in the first place. And if you start hearing guys, whether it's on a channel or a YouTube channel or on top of a stage or wherever else you're listening to this kind of stuff, if you start sounding like Baldoni right here, you turn that shit off. Because that is thinking with the emotion. That's prioritizing emotion before reason. Oh, we need to stop thinking with the little head instead of the big head. Yeah, great. Live by that finally. Because it's a lot more that it has a lot more to do than with life than just about sex. Your little head is what you want to. Oh, I always talk about my little head, right? The little head does the thinking for the big head. Yeah, well, the big head still has to think about other things other than sex too. So when you start, let's all go to ayahuasca or go do shrooms or something and find God or whatever else, and we're going to be real men because we're looking in our souls or like stop it. Just when you start seeing guys like this, when you start hearing that same message, that's the last brain cell firing. That's the sound of a man running out of gas, and this guy is running out of gas here because you can listen to this guy. If you took this guy and you replaced him with a woman saying the same thing, you'd still get the same response. It'd be the same exact thing.
To cry, whether you are hurting or you're happy, even if it makes you look weak. Are you confident enough to listen to the women in your life?
Because that takes
to hear their ideas and their solutions, to hold their anguish and actually believe them.
That's
even if what they're saying is against you. And will you be man enough to stand up to other men when you hear locker room talk? When you hear stories of sexual harassment, when you hear your boys talking about grabbing ass or getting her drunk, will you actually stand up and do something so that one day we don't have to live in a world where a woman has to risk everything and come forward to say the words, me too?
There you go. Okay. So again, remember, this was during the time of Me Too. And he's about to get this standing ovation for all of this. This is also what guys do. This remember when somebody had asked me about this not too long ago. Is there such a thing as like is alpha and beta mutually exclusive from like blue pill and red pill? Yes, absolutely. Right now, when women are seeing this guy on stage and he's a good looking dude and he's mouthing the words that he's supposed to be saying right now, he's definitely like I think women in this audience would probably call him an alpha. But he's very much a blue pill alpha. He's very much the guy who's like he's white knighting right now. This is all virtue signaling at this stage, but he's white knighting right now. And how do blue pill white knights the most effective blue pill white knights are doing exactly what he does here, which is policing the thoughts of other men as a man. So men go into like a guy like this who is thoroughly conditioned by the feminine imperative, goes into the locker room. He even mentioned that here, goes into the locker room and says, hey, you leave her alone. That's essentially what he's saying. Like in easier terminology, it is this guy going in and defending Milady's honor. And there's no Milady within earshot. It's this idea that I've got a program. I have to give you the meme. And the meme is this. Don't talk about girls that way. You don't talk about her like that. You seriously take her. Right now, he's pledging allegiance he's preaching to the choir here. But the larger message is this. Be the guy, and he wants to be the overseer in the locker room. When I've done shows about male space, there's two elements to male space, or the invasion of male space, right? If there is an all-male fraternity of some sort, there's a locker room, for lack of a better term. The locker room can be anything. It can be the all-male golf club at Augusta, right? It can be just a locker room, like all-male sports, like all-male team sports. It could be gamer culture, whatever it is, an all-male kind of male space. It is intolerable for a gynocentric socialer to put up with an all-male space. So what happens is we like, well, okay, we need more. There's only male astronauts. We need female astronauts. And it's not because the women who are astronauts wanted to become astronauts. They're the first female astronauts. So what happens, the first stage of male space or destroying male space is to have a woman who's the first woman to do what only men have done before. So the first female astronaut, the first female NASCAR driver, right? That kind of stuff. So that's stage one. Stage two is once you've got women involved into that conventionally, traditionally male space, then it changes the nature of that space, because it no longer becomes about what that space was organized to do, the team, the project, the effort, the company, the NASA, whatever, the NASCAR, whatever it is. It's no longer about racing cars. It's now about including women in racing cars. And that becomes the operative of that previously male space. The things that made that all-male organ, like really, if you think about it, like corporate America used to be all-male space. And then women come into that. And what do? They fundamentally change that male space because they wanted first of all, they come into it because they want to be the first female CEO or the first female HR director, the first female this, right? And then once that's already been established and that becomes mundane, then it becomes about changing that corporation, not from a competitive male space to compete with other male spaces. It becomes about being the best formerly male space that is now a female space, or is becoming more accommodating, let's say, for women's interest. Like, because the correct way to think about things is to reform your male specific company, your male specific endeavor, your male specific group to be about the interests of women. That's exactly what he's talking about right here. So that's number one. Number two is that once women get into that, they have to police that space. And they have to become what I call the overseers in the locker room. So now it's no longer an all-male team. It's women are included too. Well, if men start talking bad about women, or they start even having questions about women's nature, or if they bring up uncomfortable topics or unflattering thing, or pointing out unflattering bits and pieces of women's nature, we can't have that. We can't have an honest conversation. That's what this guy's about. Like, I would not want to be in the locker room. I would not want to be this guy's friend, because I would not be able to actually, as much as he would love me to do so, I would not be able to actually talk about the things that I want to talk about. I would not be able to have an honest conversation with this guy, because everything that I would talk about, we would already have this sort of policeman that is the feminine imperative between me and him. So if he's in the locker room and I'm talking to my friend about like, hey, we're going to talk about women's nature, it's as measured. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, hey, she's got a nice ass, right? It's not like women don't do that too. They do. But there's no overseers in the women's locker room, because they feel entitled to be able to say this, to be just as even more sexist than men do. But I got this guy in my locker room telling me, hey, you, leave her alone. Hey, you, don't talk about women that way. Hey, you, she's a human being. She's not just a piece of meat. Meanwhile, the ladies in their locker room are talking about Jason Momoa in Aquaman. Boy, I'd love to get with him, right? That's okay. And there ain't no policewoman in there going, well, Jason Momoa is a human. He's not a slab of beef. That's not, that conversation isn't going to happen. But I have to worry about the pink Gestapo in my locker room. He's the overseer in the locker room. And that is a very efficient way of controlling not only just like your memes and the way that you think about things, your ideology. It's a way of policing. I mean, it's a way of policing thought. Women don't have to do any work. They condition enough men to do their work for them. And now it's really an effort in social engineering. because there's enough guys who think that the secret of appeasing women and to being on team woman and to be living more correctly in a female-centric society, the way to do that is to be the police officer in the locker room, police other men's thoughts. That's what it's about. And it's not about like, oh, well, it's like guys are going to be guys, right? Boys will be boys. No, we'll be good humans. What's a good human? A good human is a woman. A bad human is a man. And if you're going to act like a guy, if you're going to process emotions like a guy, if you're going to behave and think like a guy, like he was just saying in all of his examples, then you're wrong. Then you're bad. You're a bad human because you're not thinking like women do. And I'm going to be the guy to let you know about that. And you know what? I shouldn't be the only one. You guys need to pick up the mantle and be the police officer and be the overseer in the locker room yourself. You guys, this guy is trying to clone his ideology, his feminine specific, blue pill conditioned, gynocentric ideology, and clone it, copy it, and paste it into you, so that you will be the guy who is now the overseer in the locker room. That is very, very effective means of social control. If I were talking about, Maoist China and said the same thing, you guys would probably be like, oh my God, you're right. But because I'm talking about men and women, we got, well, are you sure? Women need respect and blah. Like there's going to be some sort of hesitation, particularly since you probably, most likely, gentlemen, have been brought up in a blue pill condition that has tried its damnedest to make you into this guy. He's copying and pasting his mimetic, whatever you want to call it, notions about men and women, and certainly men's nature. And he probably doesn't even realize where this is coming from. Like right now, I can look at this and I go, this is a guy who has been conditioned, well, the blue pill conditioning, yes, but he's been conditioned by gynocentrism that is dependent on the blank slate and dependent on the idea that social constructionism is everything. He probably has no earthly clue that the way he came to the beliefs he did was set for him by somebody else who has, and somebody else before them and somebody else before them, that prioritizes the idea that everything that guys think, everything that guys know, everything that guys behave wise is all because they have been conditioned or learned that through society. That's social constructionism in a nutshell. And it has nothing to do with the fact that they're guys, unless it's convenient. Unless we can say, well, guys like a challenge, so here's my challenge to you. My challenge to you is to believe more in social constructionism than the fact that guys like a challenge. That's what it comes down to. Now, let's get a standing ovation here.
This is serious stuff. I've had to take a real honest look at the ways that I've unconsciously been hurting the women in my life. And it's ugly.
I'm a bad
My wife
woman.
Told me that I had been acting in a certain way that hurt her and not correcting it. Basically, sometimes when she would go to speak, at home or in public, I would just cut her off mid-sentence and finish her thought for her.
Man-interrupting.
It's awful.
Because women never.
The worst part was that I was completely unaware when I was doing it. It was unconscious. So here I am doing my part, trying to be a feminist.
Trying to be a feminist. I should probably just leave it right there. But again, communication styles. You're not being an asshat because you're doing that. You're being a dude, right? You're prioritizing information above the feelings. Well, I should let my wife finish her stories because it makes her feel good when she communicates. Okay, maybe that's true. But you should also understand that you're not doing it because you've been conditioned to do so. You're doing it because that's what guys do. We prioritize the information before the context. Context. Oh, well, that's so rude. I want to be a better feminist.
Amplifying the voices of women around the world, and yet at home, I am using my louder voice to silence the woman I love the most.
I'm sorry.
So I had to ask myself a tough question. Am I man enough to just shut the hell up and listen?
Like that. And that's the last bit I wanted to throw out. I'm going to leave it at that. There's more to it than this. There's actually a little bit more. So shut up, guys. Silence yourself. Talk about your feelings. Be vulnerable with your boys. Act more like a woman, but shut up when women are talking. Don't mansplain, right? Shut up when women are talking. How do you respect women? You shut up. You just don't say anything. Well, what if what I have to say will solve a problem? What if I want to pull the nail out of my wife's forehead? She doesn't need that. Just shut up. Okay, I'm shutting up. There's still a nail in her forehead. And now the nail is not only affecting my life, but it's affecting other people's lives. It's affecting her life. It's affecting her family's life. It's affecting your children's lives. It's affecting the people you work with life. No, shut up. Don't presume to take the nail out. Don't try to solve her problems. Just listen. Because if you were a good human, you'd be more like a woman. What do women do? They don't solve. It's not about solving problems. Men are innately deductive problem solvers. Women don't want to. It's not about problem solving as much as it is about emoting, as much as it is about feeling. Women don't want the nail pulled out of their head. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a video called "It's Not About the Nail." Go look it up. I've used this as an example before. Again, I probably should just like bite the bullet and do a non-monetized breakdown of that video. I like a short one. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do that for the 30-minute video for Wednesday. But it's not about the nail. Is the woman with the nail in her head, and the guy that I guess was her boyfriend or her husband or whatever, is having this conversation with her on the couch. And every time he brings up the nail, which is the problem that she's talking about, like, I got this horrible feeling in my head. I just don't know what to do about it. I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, you got a nail in. Can I pull? And the guy, she's, no, it's not about the nail. Oh, I can't. Men, listen, blah, 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 blah. And it's supposed to be this funny illustration. And it is, but it's supposed to be this funny illustration. I don't think they realize just how truthful it is, but it's meant to be an illustration of how men and women communicate. Women don't want they don't want the solution. They want you to sit there and listen to about the problem. Women are the vulnerable sex. So it stands to reason that they would like to talk about their vulnerabilities rather than try to make them more secure. Take the nail out. That'll make you more secure. No, it's not about the nail. Screw you. Men are all the same. You need to listen. That's exactly what Baldoni here is talking about. Baldoni? Probably don't remember what his real name is. What do I got here? Now taking odds on how long the first sexual harassment claim against this guy. Yeah, I would be, this was, it's funny you should say that, Big Sky. I don't know. Somebody go look that up. Maybe he already does. It's a possibility. I wonder what he's still doing. He was part of a group called We Are Man Enough. And I don't know if it's still around. Like I said, the reason why I threw this up there, I wanted to discuss this today, is because I think eventually what happens is we run the risk in the manosphere right now of turning into this guy. Like the grift, the idea, like, I'm going to get up there and tell men how to be men. The reason why you even have an audience right now of guys who want to listen to what you have to say, you guys, even to me, and this is, I'm not excluding myself from this at all. But the reason why I have had about 1,500 people watching this today is because you want answers. You're looking for some, maybe you want some entertainment too, but like you're looking for answers. At some point along the way, when you became red pilled, you're like, what I'm doing is not working. Well, I'm going to go look on, how do I get girls? How do I get my girlfriend back? That's the most common one. And then along the way, you learn women's nature. And after that, you learn your own nature as a guy. And yes, there are human natures. The idea that there aren't is blank slate equalism and social constructionism. Thank you very much. Something you need to unlearn. But so you've got this guy who wants to be on Team Woman, desperately wants to be on Team Woman, still doesn't realize why. Like his highest ideal is to be a male feminist. This is the mind of a male feminist. And I think that in the manosphere today, we have a lot of guys stepping up to the plate or stepping up on their channels or stepping up to the stage or wherever else to talk about how to be a real man. And if you've read my fourth book, which is right here, I have a whole section in this about the quote unquote real man, the registered trademark. Now, the idea of what a real man does is used by a lot of different interests. This guy right here, if I said, hey, Baldoni dude, what is a real man? He would be able to, he just explained this. He's a male feminist. That's a real man. That's what a real man, a real man is the overseer in the locker room. The real man is the guy who isn't afraid to be vulnerable or confronts his shame or gets his friends together and has a guy's weekend so he can like discuss. And you know, it's funny is most like, I don't know what his reason, like, oh, I had to explain myself. I was ashamed of something and I wanted to tell, like, confession is good for the soul. I wonder what he was talking about. But if his confession was, oh, I interrupt my wife. Oh, can you guys help me with that? I would just go you know, like that kind of stuff is just like, dude. But he doesn't understand that. He thinks that makes him more of a man. I'm man enough because I'm willing to talk about that stuff. Like, what is it that is so shame generating that he had to have a guy's weekend to talk about it? He'd cheat on his wife. That might be some serious shit you want to talk about. But if you're going to tell me that you went and had a weekend with your boys so you could talk about how you can stop mansplaining things, you probably deserve a bust in the mouth. So, but that's a real man to him. What's a real man to the guy who's the trad con? Well, he goes to church and he has his own business and he sits around a campfire and he drinks fine bourbon and he has a golden retriever and he goes hunting in the fall and wears flannel and has a beard. And like that's the real man. Like, guys are looking for that. Like all the lost boys, they all want some direction. You know, there's a reason why guys like myself, guys like Jocko Willenick, I guess, you know, guys like Jordan Peterson, they're the dads you never had. Thank you. I'm flattered. But the reason for this is because guys have been, for the last 3 or 4 generations, have one of two, if not both, impressions of what masculinity is. It's fake. It's inauthentic. It's act, as this guy said. It is a mask you wear. Okay, well, if I'm inauthentic by trying to be masculine all the time, or LARPing, as I was saying last episode, if you're LARPing as a man, what's the real one? Who gets to decide what's real? Who gets to decide for me what true, authentic, real manism is? Because right now, according to this guy, women get to define that for you. Women get to say, yeah, the real man is the guy who's just like this. He's hot and he's 5'10" at least. He's got 6-pack abs and he just says all the right things. And he's Matt Hussey, right? He tells all these guys that they ought to be, to man up, to man down. They need to be more like women. They need to think more like women. They need to communicate more like women. They need to feel and emote like women. That would make them better men. Until you go and you look and you see all these women on Tinder or on OnlyFans or on Instagram or anywhere else on social media right now, and you see that those are exactly the polar opposite of the guys that they're hot for. So is that a real man or is that not? Who's the actor? Who's not the actor? Who gets to decide who's acting and who gets to decide who's authentic? It's a mask. You would, if you just took that masculine mask off, you would look like a chick. You would be a woman. Because that's what a good human looks like. And that's what you really are underneath all of that, because you're really soft and pliable and you're just a big softy underneath all that. Let's put down that act. You're not really a warrior. You're not going to shoot somebody. You're not really a soldier. Take that mask off, Mr. Mean Man. You're really a girl under all of that. Because in a gynocentric social order, that's the only thing that exists. And anything that's not a woman is something that's trying to become a woman. In a gynocentric social order. So that's number one. Number two is that masculinity is just simply toxic. It's demonized. Masculinity is toxic. It's no longer toxic masculinity. It's no longer the inconvenient aspects of an innate masculinity, because that's not enough anymore. Masculinity itself has to be demonized. If gynocentrism is to remain and maintain its preeminence as the social order now, masculinity can no longer just be, there's aspects of masculinity that are good and there's aspects that are bad. No, it has to be masculinity is toxic. And eventually, guys are confused. They either hate masculinity or they're confused about masculinity. So when someone comes along and says, I have the real masculinity card right here, I have the masculinity medal. And if you marry a single mom, you get you're a real man, marry single moms. Oh, you're going to take your girlfriend back after she cuckolded you? You get the manhood medal. Oh, you're going to like sacrifice. Remember, he talked about that in the very beginning of this. You're going to sacrifice your ambitions and your passions and everything else, and you're going to do it all for love, because it's all about love. And you're going to turn it all inward, and you're going to, do some soul searching and talk about your heart. Here's your manhood medal. You're a real man. Oh, you're gonna go and grow your beard out and get a man bun and wear flannel and look like a lumberjack. You get the man. You're gonna go to church. You're going to go to church on it's Easter. You're going to go to church today. You're going to go sing some hymns. You're going to be a youth pastor. You're going to be you're going to run for mayor. You're going to be an upstanding guy. You're going to be an alpha male according to what our ideology would like you to be, because we need those guys. But still, you're going to respect women, and you're still going to be part of that. Well, here's your man medal. Here's the real man medal. And that's the thing, is that guys right now, think that they hold the man medal. Women already do. You'll see this all the time. I've seen, not a week goes by that somebody doesn't send me or retweet me something that says, hey, check this out, Rollo. This girl says that a real man takes back her cheating girlfriend and raises another man's child, and that makes him a real man. Right? He's not the stepdad. He's the dad who stepped up. Here's your man medal. You're a real man. You're going against your own innate masculine imperatives like paternity. Here's your man medal, because you're doing what we want you to do. You're going against everything that you're fighting your internal wars with yourself, because you instinctively know that this ain't right, that this is some real epic God tier bullshit, and you're going to tamp that down. You're a man. There you go. How do I be a man? How do I get authentic real manhood? Come to my convention, watch my channel, read my book. I don't know, eat this food, grill some steak. Manhood, there you go. Bing. I mean, think about all the medals you would have if you just did everything anybody told you that required you to be a real man, rather than thinking about what it really means, rather than thinking about what it innately means, rather than thinking about how you evolved as a guy, like embracing the fact that, yeah, you want to fight, you want to fuck, you want to do what you're all about yourself. You have innate mental point of origin. You want your interests are about yourself. You're going to build your own business. Great. Awesome. That's what you want to do. I'm not going to say you're going to get a man medal for that. I'm just saying that the things that you want to do, you get to decide that, not this asshat, not anybody sitting on a stage, not anybody on a YouTube channel. You get to decide. And that's why I'm going to end this. That's where I'm going to end this today, is because I said this before. I will say it one more time. What do you want? Guys, do not ask themselves that question. What do you want from life? Is that a result? Is that goal a result of what other people have told you? You're going to be a real man if you go to college, you get you make a good chunk of change, and you're a good husband, and you're going to be a good dad, and you're going to make partner in the law team, and all. Is that going to? And you got a good wife, and you're going to finally find this good girl, and you don't care what the risks are. You're going to get married anyways. That kind of, is that what makes you a man? As you get here's your man medal. Is that what's going to define you as a male human being on planet Earth in the year 2021? And beware of guys telling you that now and changing the story later on, because I will guarantee you, and this is how I've seen this. I've been in this manosphere crap, whatever we're going to call it, red pill, whatever. I've been in this long enough to see the cycles, and I see what happens. I see guys who start out strong. They're very empirical. They're very reasonable. They're very rational. They stick to their guns, and then incrementally, whether it's because they want to turn a buck, or it's just simply because they want to appeal to a wider audience, or whatever else, or they want to start opening up their audience to women, such as, like, say, Evan Mark Katz, or Matt Hussey, or Mark Manson, or I can name a few other guys who are just like this guy. They're very popular with women, but they want to be popular with men because they want to open up that audience. Let's start doing fitness, because guys like fitness. Never mind that that's an innate interest and you're still attempting to present this as if that men are all the results of their social construction. But that's okay. You don't see guys like this dude, Baldoni, don't see the irony in that. I do. And I do because I've seen enough guys go from being very red pill to be very blue pill. They go from being very, very on point about their talking about women's nature, how to get girls, right? Okay, well, that's one thing for sure. But then when you get into like the positivity grift and you get into the real man, I've got the real man medals here. I got this new box of real man, commemorative coins, and I'm going to give you one if you, I don't know, grow your beard long and, chop wood. Here's your man coin, whatever it is. And now what you're doing is you're no better than this dude right here. You might think you are because I'm red pill. I read the rational male, blah, blah, blah. You're no better than Baldoni because it's essentially the same thing. And eventually, if you keep going, you will be that guy. But at some point, it's no longer about the actual message. It's about appealing to a broader audience of guys who are the lost boys, who are they're looking for the dad that they never had. And if you've got the coin that says, I'm your dad, here's the coin. Like, is it about that, or is it about you appealing to that wider audience? Because this guy right here is appealing to a very wide audience. He's appealing to the entirety of the gynocentric social order. You don't get a bigger audience than that today. And eventually that's what happens. I've said this 100 times. I'll say it one last time here, is that I think that the red pill needs to stay fundamentally apolitical, a-religious, a-ideological, a-racial, a-whatever. It needs to stay as pragmatic and as praxeological as possible. But when you get into the business of no longer exploring that praxeology and you get into the business of selling the metal, selling the manhood metal, you're just selling the same thing that the gynocentric social order is. You're selling the same product that the girl who says a real man marries a single mommy. And you know what? There'll be guys eventually who were against that who will be for it. Guys who, like you say, well, a real man doesn't care if a bull bangs his wife, right? A real man is into poly, and a real man is into, he's secure enough in his masculinity that it's okay if his girlfriend goes out and, fucks other guys on Tinder. He's a real man because he's okay with that. A real man is a guy who's okay with his girlfriend or his wife having an OnlyFans account. You get to benefit too, right? That's some major freaking God tier self-deception is what that is. But you're only selling the same thing this guy is. Here, a real man does this. Here's the real man medal. And the only reason it sells is because there's enough chumps out there who are confused about masculinity, or they think that masculinity is bad. It's demonized. It's obfuscated, or it is demonized. That's what masculinity is. It's never authentic. And as long as it stays inauthentic, you can keep selling the manhood badge. You can keep selling the merit badge, right? You can give the commemorative coins, the medals, whatever it is. This is manhood. Guys are looking, well, what does it mean to be a man? Well, I'm going to define it for myself. It's all subjective. No, it's not. It's very much objective. There's a conventional masculinity. And this Baldoni guy even hints at it several times in this. He'll never acknowledge that. He'll never acknowledge the innateness of masculinity in human males on planet Earth. But he'll be happy to sell you the medal that says, this is what I approve of. This is what a man is in my thinking. Here's the manhood badge. Be careful of who's selling you the manhood medal. Be careful of the guys who are saying, you need to man up, when they're also telling you to man down. Because too many guys have been responsibility is a really good seller. There's nothing that sells the man medal like you need to take on more responsibility. You need to start living up to expectations. You need to live up to your potential. That's all about responsibility. And women love that. Because most women think that, that'll make a higher quality, higher value man if guys just take on more responsibility. The problem is they don't see that responsibility requires authority. You will never see guys selling authority as the manhood badge. You will never, this guy certainly wouldn't even dream of that. It's all about empowering her, and don't mansplain and don't manspread and don't man interrupt or whatever the man shit is right now. Don't do that. No. That's not real manhood. A real man shuts up. Just shut up. Oh, here, ding. I wish I had a ding. You get the manhood about it. You shut up. Good boy. You're a good human because you shut up, because you knuckled under, not only to me, but to the gynocentric social order to begin with. That's what will make you attractive. That was what will make you a good human if you just shut up. Be a good human and shut up. Be a good human. Stay in your home. Stay in your apartment. It's lockdown. Wear a mask. I know I'm making comparisons there, but it's along the same lines. To be good is to shut up. To be good is to be more of a woman. To emote more. To feel good. To make her feel good. To make you feel good. Oh, good. Well, you know what? Well, if all you're concerned about is feeling good in your own comfort, you don't grow. You don't go anywhere with that. You don't become more. I mean, men must become. You're not going to become by feeling good. You're going to become by feeling bad, by discontent. Men become through discontent, not through contentment. When this guy's like saying, "Oh, you need to look at your heart and see what," it's all about feelings. It's all, "Oh, we got to get in touch with our emotional side." That's presuming that you should prioritize emotion before reason. Reason would have you say, "You know what? I need to get off my ass and do something." And sometimes that means being a selfish son of a bitch. Sometimes that means I have to tamp down my feelings because nobody really gives a flying fuck what I feel. And therefore, I have to grow. I have to build. I have to do something. I have to become more than I am so that I can get to a point where maybe I'm not content, but I'm less discontent than I was before. And hopefully you're doing that creatively and not destructively. But even that creative discontent it's not about, "Oh, I'm going to look and see what I feel like." No, you need to get off your fucking ass. That's what you need to do. Get off your ass. And don't, and again, guys telling you, guys still want this idea that they're confused or or masculinity is demonized. And I'm sorry, that's the way it has been. We've been raising our generations of boys as if they're defective girls. And in that defectiveness, it makes for men who become defective women. This guy is a defective woman who wants to be perfected and wants other guys to be perfected too. All right, let me see what else I got going here, because I got to take a piss in a bad way. I drank this whole damn thing today. Is it already bad enough with the slow creep of female coaches in male sports, but at least they aren't in the locker rooms? Yeah. Yeah, that might change. Might change sooner than you think. Now, I didn't mean that literally, like the locker room. What I meant is like male space is the locker room, and then women come into the locker room, and guys act differently. When a woman is in the locker room, men act differently. Shit, you can see that in professional sports. Awesome show. We need to fight back against this mindset. Thank you very much. My point is not to make you like to call to arms, Rusty. It is more about just making you aware of what's going on. And you have to be aware, because I think what you're going to see going forward, people ask me, "Well, what's your prediction for the future for the manosphere?" I did. Funny thing. In 2018, I did the State of the Manosphere address. And my biggest, I should do a breakdown video of that, of myself. Should I do a breakdown video of Rollo Tomassi? I think I'll do that. I will do a breakdown video of my, at least parts of my State of the Manosphere address that I did in 2018 when this guy was doing this. And in that, I'll just, for sake of brevity here, in that I made this prediction is that guys will come into the sphere. They will use like things like hashtag redpill, which they did, hashtag MGTOW, which they did, hashtag whatever the next thing is, who knows, a real positive, real masculinity, that'll be the next thing. They will use that as the sort of the entry into that niche market. And then they will take that. And then eventually they run out of gas. And when they run out of gas, they go with what they think was going to play to the largest audience, which is what this guy was talking about. So beware of the guys who come into the red pill, come into the manosphere, and they've got all of this great advice for you, or they think that they're very motivational for sure. And they might even have their heart in the right place at that moment. But beware the guys who start to change their stories later on, and they start sounding like Baldoni here. Because they do. A lot of them do. Most of them do. Because it doesn't, after a while, it doesn't play to that audience anymore. And they have to, and because they're locked into that niche, they have to grow. How do you grow? Well, you try to appeal to the largest audience. That's how it works. I'm going to do that, man. I am, thanks. What? Oh, thank you for that sticker. I believe that's what that was. JPB. Jordan Peterson B. I don't know, whatever. I think I caught up here. I'm going to roll back through here. Captain Zolo says you're on a roll today. Thank you. I certainly am. Man, Lee Maxfield said, man, you're spitting facts, Professor. The blue pill conditioning is deep. Killing the beta takes time. It very much does so. And like I said, it's a process. And I think I owe you guys one of these. There you go. That's right for you, Pete. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I love the show. Listening to you in the Netherlands. Proust. You guys didn't think I know Dutch. I do. Well, I'm not fluent. I have actually two of the brands that I have ownership stake in have distilleries in Schiedam and Rotterdam. Let's see. Bogatu Ion says, thank you for the info. Okay, you are welcome. Awesome show. We need to fight back against the mindset. Yeah, okay, got to that. Maximus Decimus, thank you all for all of your super chats today. J Pot says, it's already bad enough. Yeah, okay, we got to that. Tony Pajamas says, who defines if you are alpha or beta, others or yourself? Both. I know that it's not one or the other. It's both. You get to decide who you get to be, and others are going to decide what it is that they're going to value and they are not going to value. And that is usually, that's a combination, again, of nature and nurture. So it's both, actually, Mr. Pajamas. Clarence W says, going to college in September for wind turbine tech. Bring that one up with Aaron Clary next time he's on. 100% paid. Good for you. Can't wait for it to be the boys club. I bet you there won't be a single woman in that. Yeah, you're probably right about that. STEM fields tend to lack women. Why? Because they're not as interested in those fields. That's why. Peter Crozen says, thank you very much for your, okay, you said you were in the Netherlands. I got to you. You're spitting facts today. Thank you very much. Lee Maxfield, got to you. Who else is on here today? God damn it. Hang on. It keeps jumping on me. Maximus Decimus, I saw your 100 whatever rupees. Thank you. I'm going to read that for you right now. It says men's testosterone and sperm count has been falling. This is Maximus Decimus. Has been falling for a decade now. Less aggressive men, along with proclivities for hierarchies, make such kinds perfect for a perfect pawn for those who benefit from such order. Yeah. It's the great reset towards transhumanism. Well, we should talk about transhumanism someday. What else do I got here? I have off topic. I'm not going to do off topics today, but Cyberpunk says off topic, address later. Does entering your employer's frame every day suppress the alpha? Yes, but in some cases, maybe not entirely. Maybe because your employer wants you to be more alpha. Does the alpha thrive on the chaos and the completion of self-employment rather than security and normalcy of a salaried position? Once again, Cyberpunk, alpha is a mindset, not a demographic. There are plenty of guys who are alpha males who thrive at jobs, at 9-to-5 jobs. And there are plenty of alphas who are incarcerated in jail right now. And that's very regimented if you think about it. But yeah, I think it's, again, the personality traits is one thing. Another thing is, like, is that guy innately alpha? Is he a learned alpha? You can also learn to do, to respond to, you can internalize an alpha mindset. It helps if you're an innate alpha for sure, but it is when I use alpha, remember this, or beta or whatever, those are abstractions. Those are placeholder terms. So my best advice to you, Cyberpunk, is to go look up my What is Alpha episode on this channel. That will probably explain better than I can in the remaining 5 minutes I have. Being bullied. Red Sings the Blues says being bullied makes you better with bosses and mentors. It certainly gives you an education. Learn that even when the bully goes away, real life is a bigger bully. My mentors taught me that. Yes, I would rather have my child and my daughter prepared for the real world than to insulate them from it, than to pretend it doesn't exist, than to put your head in the sand. I don't want my daughter's head to ever be in the sand. I want her to be resilient. I want her to be Teflon enough to be able to come back and strike back if she has to deal with the realities of the world. And I think that that's a good way to raise kids, quite honestly. We need tough kids. Let's see. I don't know. What is this? Arnold says, I don't know. They run this narrative along with the dark triad men in pop culture getting all women who they think men will look for as role models. That all depends on what the role is that you want them to play. Do you want more men to be Superman, or would you rather they be Batman? Do you want more Captain Americas, or do you want more Spider-Man, or do you want more Iron Man? I really need to break down the differences in alpha between like Captain America and Iron Man rather than like talking. I think I did that show about how guys have this fantasy of being sort of the hero who goes from like, he still is himself, his beta self, but he suddenly extraordinarily becomes an alpha. We'll talk about that later. All right. I'm going to go out. I apologize if I did not get to your super chat today. I have done my best to sort of keep up today. I hope today has been a really good educational show for you today. I feel like it kind of was. Book 5 ETA collabs. I'm not collabing with anybody on book 5 right now. It's in the larval stage. I have the outline done, so that's good news. I plan on writing it probably late spring and maybe in through summer. It should be a lot quicker to do. Than my 3-year highly researched book 4 that I wish people really into. And the Audible is coming up soon. Sambata assures me. Asanji says, what makes a guru legit? Numbers, quality of girls you get, something else, the experience in the... Again, you have to be the decider of that. You have critical thinking faculties. What do you think? There are plenty of guys who can buy chicks. That's the first thing anybody ever says about gurus or PUAs or dating coaches, whatever. Well, look at the quality of the girls he's with. How many girls is he? What's his notch count? If that's what impresses you, then maybe that's your metric for it. Okay. Numbers. Okay. Girls, the kinds of girls you get. Well, what if I only got like 20 girls, but they're all 10s? Does that make me legit? Well, you didn't get 100. You don't have triple digits like Joe over here. What's more legit? 20 girls who are 9s and 10s, such as it is, or 100 girls who are 7s and 8s? Like, how do you score that? Like, what's the deal? What I would say is this, Asanji, is what is that guy saying, and does it measure up? Does it pass the smell test? Is it through critical thinking? Is it valuable enough? I don't give advice here. I know that sounds kind of like counterintuitive, but I don't give advice here. I just work here, man. I hold up a mirror and you guys have to look into it. I give you analysis for sure, but I don't do mystery. I don't do ROLLO method. I don't go out there and do infields. I can explain why what these guys are doing is working or not working. I can give you that analysis. I have experience. I have been, I can give you the experience of a guy who's been alpha enough in the late 80s and early 90s to bang 45 women. And a lot of them were very good looking girls in the LA metal scene, the LA club scene back in the day. I can give you advice from a guy's perspective who went through dealing with a BPD girlfriend. Is that valuable to you? Does that make me legit? Well, a real alpha wouldn't have got into it in the first place. Well, if that's your metric, then I can't help you. But you know who can't help you with a BPD girlfriend? Mr. Pickup Artist who's using, paid models to convince you that he's legit. He's not going to be able to tell you that. He doesn't know that. He can't tell you how to live with women. You want to know why Mystery was suicidal? Because he was brilliant at game, but he sucked at red pill. He sucked at the understanding why what he was doing worked. So is he legit? Mystery method is a foundation for a lot of PUA stuff. I'm not saying it's all 100% still valid today because times change, but I think the underpinnings of it are absolutely still valid. Is that legit? You tell me, what are you looking for? Again, what do you want? What do you want to do? What's your end state goal? Because a lot of these guys, a lot of the dudes that I'm seeing right now, it's interesting to me because there's the guys who are like the dyed in the wool pickup artist guys who say, oh, look at these guys. They don't get the numbers. Fuck these guys. And then you got the guy who says, the ultimate goal of getting together with a woman and finding a high quality woman who's not used up and ran through and it doesn't have isn't drinking box wine and has 4 cats is to eventually get married and have a great life and have a good family. And you guys just need to stop being little whiny little bitches. Is that valuable to you? Because he's giving one advice, another guy's giving another advice. What's your goal? The guy who just wants to talk about numbers and hot chicks, that guy didn't care about getting married. Dudes, those dudes are like in their late 30s, early 40s. They're not married. Are they going to give you some kind of like actionable? Did they have any experience in that? No, they don't. They'd be the worst people to take advice from. But maybe that's not your goal. Maybe that's not what you want to do. I love it how these guys who like come into the sphere on, claiming to be MGTOW, and then like 2 years later, now they're red pill guys trying to tell you how to get chicks. Those are the guys you need to watch out for. I'm not going to name names, but those are the guys you need to watch out for. Because they didn't get into it for any other reason than it's a niche market for them. It looked like a good, hey, let's use the hashtag MGTOW. Okay, good. 2 years later, here's how you get girls. I thought you were MGTOW. Yeah, I am. Well, what is that? I don't know. It just worked. The experience of the red pill community or something else. Yeah. Well, again, what are your goals? What metric are you using? That's really what it boils down to. And I hate to be ambiguous, but that's the best way I can say it. Twin says, Professor Rollo, thank you so much for today's lecture. You are welcome. I hope you took notes today, Twin. I expect you guys to take notes. Okay, I already did that. And, oh, look at that. ETA on book 5. Yeah. I'm concerned with the Audible on book 4 right now. Thank you again for that nice little super sticker, which I can't post because StreamYard won't allow me to. Maybe that's what I need to tell Gage the next time. I say, hey, dude, you want improvements on StreamYard? Give me the ability to put stickers up because I dig them. Is Jacob and Esau the archetypal story of the beta and the alpha male? Let me get back to you on that. Yeah, kind of. I really need to do, I was going to write, I probably will post this on the blog because it's not really something I could do a show about, but I have a chapter that I did not include in book 4. It's called Red Pill Heroes of the Bible. And yeah, I probably should drop that in there. All right, guys, I'm done. Thank you guys. Have a good Easter. I will be back again. I'll be doing some shorts this week. There will be at the very least a 30-minute episode Wednesday, which will be a recorded show. I might do a breakdown video of Rollo Tomassi on The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi. That would be kind of funny. All right, guys, that was good. Thanks, dude. I will see you later, and I'll see you then. Bye.